Well, hello, hello.
Took me a minute to get that figured out.
Ah, yes, yes. They definitely don't make it easy to zoom in on Zoom. No pun intended.
No.
Well, you've got me for the next 40 minutes, Zach. You can be called Zach or Zachary or Zachariah. The only reason I'm asking is because I work in customer service and people get so upset when I call them by the name in their profile. And I'm like, no, my name is Susie, not Susanette. I'm like, well, I do apologize. Told me you want to be called Susie. I will call you that, Susie. And then, of course, there are other people who I called by the first time. I'm like, no, I didn't go to school for 20 years for you to call me by my first name. I am Dr. Hawthorne. Okay. I'm like, yes, sir. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend. But if you're a doctor, what are you doing on OHP? You obviously make too much money to be meeting the
Right.
guidelines. And they're like, no, I was laid off. I was like, ah, the plot thickens.
I go by Zach,
Oh, okay, fantastic.
typically.
I go by Michael, Michelangelo, Michael too cool for school, Michael on the death bike. As long as the word cool is in there, I go by any iteration or variation thereof.
Awesome.
Oh, I like your American flag in the background. What do you think of my
Thank you.
logo?
Huh?
What do you think of my logo as my background?
I like it.
Yes, I can't figure out how to get it to be more shrunken down so you see the whole state of Oregon. And then here, let me move out of the way so you can actually see the beautiful bike logo.
That's kind of cool.
Oh, yes, I'm the only candidate with a bike on my logo. And do you see the special handlebar?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll just send you an email if you want. Yes. So yes, I definitely want to thank you, Zach, for reaching out. I wish more and more voters were like you. Oh, and also, do you mind if I post our conversation on social media? Because actually I just made a super killer, no pun intended, graphic of our conversation with these awesome AK-47s in the background.
That's totally good as long as they can post it on the YouTube channel.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I'll send you a screenshot before I send it off to you. But yes, it's gonna be very good. I'm kind of stunned that we're almost on election day and you're the first person to ask me about my Second Amendment stance. You would think there'd be more Democrats who would be concerned about the Second Amendment, but
Right.
apparently you, like me, are in the vast minority of minorities, as they say.
I mean, I'm typically more on a right-leaning libertarian side of things,
Ah,
but I also don't like to stick with either party, all the way out. I mean, I'm a registered Republican because it falls under the more important values for me, but I like to hear both sides' points of view before I vote.
Now you do know that if you're a registered Republican, you can't vote for me.
On the next election, assuming it gets to the primary or whatever that is.
Right, in the general election, yes.
The general, yeah.
But
that's kind of where I'm looking at.
In the primary, though, you're stuck with the Republican field.
Right.
So
which kind of sucks
to me. Well, one of the things I want to do as governor is actually open up the primaries so anybody can vote. I'm surprised Oregon, as progressive as it claims to be, has closed primaries. That's very not open-minded or open-ended.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I wish there was more options for libertarians to run and have the ability to run the same as Republicans and Democrats have the ability to run.
Well, you are in luck because that's another thing I want to do as governor is open up the elections to all parties. I've attended the Social Democratic Party of America for a couple of their meetings, and they're actually in the process of registering to be an actual official party. But again, like you said, it's very hard to run as anything but a Democrat or Republican. And I myself have witnessed and seen just how discriminatory the Democratic Party and the unions are to anybody who isn't the front runner.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen the same thing on the Republican side. It's a lot of it's the top people. There's a few people, and then it's almost the same thing that the people who are just getting up and running. So the smaller candidates who are more on the constitutionalist or libertarian side, but still registered as Republican, don't even get put up there as where the full-on Republicans get put up on center stage and get, you know, all the attention, all the stuff on the ballots, and a lot of the smaller candidates don't.
Well, we definitely want to change that. And I also want to introduce campaign finance reform to get money out of politics. And the first, I think, I'm the only candidate in the Democratic Party side to say this. I want to introduce what is called campaign media reform. Have you ever heard of the fairness doctrine?
The what?
The fairness doctrine?
I don't believe so.
Okay, well, it's a doctrine that your beloved President Ronald Reagan struck down as unconstitutional. Obviously, I disagree with Ronald Reagan. But the fairness doctrine basically stipulates that media companies have to cover all sides of a story. They can't cherry pick. And so what I will do is in Oregon, I'll introduce it as the state ballot and have the media companies in Oregon follow it, because if you read the paper and all the major medias, you would only think there are two candidates running for governor, Tobias
Right.
and Tina, but there were actually 15 candidates on the Democratic side, and I think there's 12 on the Republican side. But again, only the big frontrunners who can spend the money and buy the ads get the attention. And I'm sorry, but elections are about issues, not how much money you can raise.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a lot of it seems to go with the money, and even the media should be covering things. I think both sides agree that the media, whether that be Fox News or CNN or ABC or whatever, has a lot of bias in them. And it's like, well, you're being biased to this side. Well, you're being biased to that side. Well, both of the media sides are biased. I mean, Fox News is a lot more biased towards the left, doesn't show as much towards the left in the Democrat Party and all that, versus, CNN is a lot more, again, seems to be a lot more further from the Republican side of things and wants to show more on the Democrat side.
Well, CNN and Fox are what are called bipolar opposites. They only
Right.
cover the far extremes of the parties,
Right.
while ignoring the other party, ignoring the people in the middle, ignoring the centrists. And then, of course, we wonder why nothing ever changes.
Right. I mean, if we're, not seeing both sides, and it's all, hey, we're looking at this one side or we're looking at that one side, you're never going to see what's on the other side of the aisle on what you want.
Absolutely. So what other issues can we talk about? I know we talked about guns, and obviously you and I are probably a disagreement with that. I am a progressive because I am a progressive, but I am a progressive that is open to allowing people to exercise the Second Amendment, even though I myself don't have the right to bear arms. Did you watch that video I sent you of me with the gun?
I did.
What did you think about that?
I thought it was pretty cool.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yeah, you feel free to share it with your family and friends, And so I'm actually the only Democrat who is even discussing allowing people to carry arms, because even though I don't agree with the Second Amendment, as governor, it's not for me to cherry pick what I do and don't like about our Constitution. We need to enforce all of it. But there's a lot of middle ground we can approach, because most Americans do not agree with the NRA, because the NRA is basically the far right side of the Republican Party, and they don't want any regulations whatsoever. And the founding fathers couldn't have anticipated all of the varying factors gun owners would be facing 246 years from the writing of the Second Amendment. And so these constitutionalists and originalists, especially in the Supreme Court, they like to interpret the language as it was written, but you can't apply that as it was written, because we're living in different times.
Right. I've heard that a lot. And I'm a big Second Amendment activist, and that's kind of one of the big reasons that I wanted to hear some of the points of view on the other side. And a lot of people won't sit down and be like, hey, let's talk about this, see where we can maybe meet in the middle, if that's even a possibility, and work together to accomplish something that everyone's going to agree on.
Exactly. And and I know that you don't agree on the whole rounds thing, and I know that there are studies that show that diminishing round size doesn't really eliminate school shootings, but if we can have less people shot in these mass shootings, that's all the better. Even if only one person is not shot because we limit rounds, and then I feel that the legislation was worth it. I'm not taking away your guns. I'm just simply saying, your gun can only have 10 rounds maximum.
Now, are we talking that on all firearms, or are we talking that on things such as the AR and the AK?
Okay, the AR and the AK are going to be banned. Civilians have no reason to have those military grade weapons.
Because I guess, my big thing with that was, I build ARs for fun.
Oh.
So, I mean, and I've sat down with a lot of people, different roommates I've had, and have talked to them, where they're like, well, ARs have no reason to be in, say, society or whatever, because say there's no reason. I sit down there and I talk to them, I show them how it works, and their stance completely flips. Because when people hear the word AR, they typically think of assault rifle, but AR stands for Armalite rifle. And then on that, people think, okay, the .223 caliber bullet is or ammunition, it would destroy meat. .223 is going to be the minimum caliber you're going to be able to hunt deer with in Oregon.
Right, but if you're hunting deer with an AR, aren't you going to destroy the meat, because you need to be more precision when it comes to deer hunting, not just multiple rounds?
That's what a lot of people have. That's the same thing that one person I was telling you about has asked me. And Oregon has a regulation for deer hunting that for semi-automatic rifles, it's 5 rounds only. And then the AR, despite what a lot of people think and hear, the AR, and I believe it's the military I guess the military rifle that is very, very similar. I mean, they're almost identical. The big difference between the two is that the AR has doesn't have the burst fire, automatic fire, which would destroy meat if you were hunting to an extent, versus the AR, it's one shot per pull the trigger.
So it's not like automatic firing.
No, AR is not automatic firing. Can you get an automatic weapon in today? Yes, but you go through, tens of thousands of dollars to purchase it, on top of the $200 tax stamp and all these other fees and background checks and year-long wait time for it to go through.
Right. What I want to do is cut those down, because I do think they are unreasonable, and that those regulations actually do infringe on your right to bear arms. Obviously, I want to make sure that you do pass the background check. Right. And if you do, you have every right. But again, why should you have a gun that has more than 10 rounds? What do you need that for?
I guess you got to break down and what because I do agree to an extent with you on the founding fathers couldn't expect what was gonna come out now. But I think they wrote it very, very broad because of that. I mean, the specifics for it was the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. And I guess the big thing with saying, hey, I'm, take away this gun or that gun, it really does infringe on it. As much as, some people don't agree with, say, hey, carrying around ARs or even fully automatic weapons that are complete, hold the trigger down and shoots as many rounds as you when you're holding it down, I guess until the magazine's out. I guess the idea of it kept broad was to protect as many guns as possible that weren't seen to be now. And the creation of it was originally, if you look in the Declaration of Independence area of the Constitution, was when a government becomes, say, I think the easiest way to break it down is when the government becomes tyrannical or becomes a threat to us, whether that be our government in the sense of federal or state, but a foreign government coming in and invading us. We shouldn't have to be doing what Ukraine is doing now, what Ukraine had to do in the beginning of the war, and get all these weapons out to everybody. We should already have some level of weapons that are going to be effective to take on a large standing, army or the beginning of the invasion, till we can get those other weapons dispersed to the people who they should be dispersed to. And I also sat with looking at the Ukraine, and I don't know what your views on that were, but like I said, at the beginning of the war, they were handing out automatic weapons to civilians, no background checks, no nothing.
Well, that is definitely a different scenario, because
right, definitely
under attack. Go ahead.
Right, definitely a different scenario. But we sit there and we're handing out, we're handing out those weapons even last minute, and we're not able to run those background checks or figure out, who's not a felon, who's gonna go home and go kill their wife or husband or whoever, or go out to a baseball stadium and just start shooting up a bunch of people. We don't know that. And yes, the war from Ukraine, now we have all these civilians having automatic weapons. As much as, it is sort of it is their Second Amendment right to have it to an extent. If we don't have the time to say, look at them, and then at the end of that war, now we have so many civilians running around with automatic weapons that could have been felons or could be planning mass shootings in the very, very near future, now that this hypothetical war is over. We can't look at, the logical side of that without, now we have all these automatic weapons running around that there's no way to get back, because we don't know who's
still alive. There's always ways you can get them back, and Ukraine is a very unique situation. And actually, Ukraine is a good situation because the Second Amendment would allow. I don't think Ukraine has a Second Amendment in their.
They don't believe they did.
Right, but the thing is that if we ever were invaded, the Second Amendment would actually apply to be able to make sure that a well-regulated militia could arm itself. But let me ask you this question. If we decided to rise up against the Biden administration for whatever reason, do you really think even if you had AK-47 and assault rifles, we could actually go up against the U.S. military with all of their military might? Because when the founding fathers wrote the Second Amendment, mind you, there were no automatic rifles. Everything was handgun and hand loaded.
Right. But, you got to look at it. And as I said, we should, to an extent, allow fully automatic weapons. And the reason I say that's because back when the founding fathers originally wrote the Second Amendment and rose up against, I believe it was Britain, they had, both sides had the single shot muskets, or whatever we want to call them, that they had to load. Both sides had cannons. And despite what Biden said on that, back when the Second Amendment was originally written, there were no regulations on firearms whatsoever.
Ooh, that is correct. Yes, we were living in the wild America. And at the time of the Civil War, both the North and the South had exactly the same type of weapons against each other. But if we were to do a civil war today and rise up against the government, it would be an unequal fight, because they have tanks, fighter jets, missiles. Even with an AK-47, do you honestly believe that you can rise up against the federal government? No.
I guess here's the thing that, we could, and I know that's a really good question to ask, because could we rise up against the government? I mean, the question is, Biden did say, F-15s and nukes. Well, in all reality, the government could say, assuming it got to the tyrannical point of them saying, screw the civilian population, could they just come through the town with F-15s and nuke us? They could, but even bringing that up would, for example, when Biden brought that up, it's like really concerning, like, why are you even thinking about this? I mean, I do get, the point that, if it did become that tyrannical, but, that did happen. But I do feel, looking at the amount of firearms that are in circulation right now, even with the ARs and AKs in circulation, the ARs, recent ATF rule that came out about 80% lowers even stated in the rule that the AR-15 is one of the most common rifles in America right now. Or most popular, sorry, wrong one, most popular. And being able to have as much of a fair fight against it as we can, or preserve what we already have, it is important, because like you said, it's going to already be a challenge to fight off a tyrannical government if that were to happen.
Well, we actually already have an example of how you defeat a superpower. It's called Afghanistan and Iraq. They didn't have the weapons we did, but their years of insurgency drove us out. So there are ways you can defeat a better weaponed enemy, but it's not with AK-47s and the best weapons. You have to do insurgency. You have to do bombs. I mean, I think there's going to be studies done about how America lost Vietnam and now Iraq and Afghanistan, and we were defeated by people who had nothing. And so my whole argument is, you don't need these weapons. There are other ways we can go after the government without these crazy weapons.
Yeah, and I guess what we got to look at is how can we keep, if we were not to, as much as I think we need to pull, gain some of the stuff back, and it is very much, like I said, as a right, the ARs, I think, is an important start to, if the government would be tyrannical, to take it back, because that means from a 5-shot, bolt action rifle, to a semi-automatic rifle, whether that be the AR, the AK, or any numerous weapons that run on the semi-automatic platform, and the insurgency to, say, take back this hypothetical tyrannical government is going to become much easier. I mean, I guess Red Dawn is the movie Red Dawn is sort of a really good example. I mean, I guess they did start out with a bolt action rifle, but they originally gained the other weapons. If they had some of the ARs, right, that we have, and AKs and stuff that we have now, to be able to get those weapons at a quicker rate and suppress that foreign government invading us quicker, I don't think it would have gotten as far as they got.
Right, but if we were invaded by a foreign government, the U.S. military would be fighting, and obviously everybody would be joining the U.S. military left and right, and they would make sure everybody had weapons. I think your concern is if we ever have to rise up against our own government, how do we fight them? But I honestly don't see that really ever happening in our lifetime. I mean, the Civil War was an exception, and I actually argue that Civil War was completely avoidable because there were people who actually in the South wanted to get rid of slavery, but they wanted to phase it out. But Lincoln wanted it gone the same day, and absolutely no time to be able to process how to assimilate all of these people who were slaves into society. And if there was going to be a civil war, I think it would have been under Donald Trump, because he was definitely a very unpopular president. I don't see any uprising under Joe Biden. He's not crazy, but he's not really popular either. I mean, when do you think we would ever actually rise up against the government? I mean, there was going to be a rise up, maybe it would have happened under the Obama years with all of his things. But again, I just don't see this argument that, we need all these weapons for this hypothetical uprising that I don't see ever happening.
I mean, I think it's one of the big things that I really do believe in is that history is doomed to repeat itself. And whether that be in our lifetime or that be in, the following generation's lifetime, or even the following generation's lifetime following that, it will inevitably happen at some point.
Mhm.
in the future, whether that be, 200 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, 1,000 years from now. I mean, pending the apocalypse doesn't happen prior.
Right, but if there ever was an uprising, believe you me, the people in uprising would find ways to get the weapons. I mean, people can break into military barracks. I mean, it's not like the weapons are being hidden. All we're saying is that we shouldn't have such a readily available arsenal, because a lot of bad things happen when things aren't locked up. So let's hypothetically entertain that we do allow you to have these weapons. Are you saying that you want to be able to carry them on the streets, or would you be open for to having them locked up? Because I know you mentioned that you found the provision SB 544 unconstitutional, making you lock your weapon up, which I don't see why that's unconstitutional.
I mean, I guess I got to break that up into two parts. With the locked up part, I think any responsible gun owner who will have their gun should have their guns secured, especially if they're living in a house with other people. Now, if they're living alone, their front door being locked, that might be, that might be another story. But if you have kids or you're living with roommates or people who shouldn't be handling your firearms, or you don't know, your gun should be secured in some way, because the vast majority of mass shootings happen with stolen firearms or illegally purchased firearms, whether that, be off the street or some gun dealer gone rogue.
And a lot of killings that happen with kids happen because the gun was not secured. There's so many kids who have lost lives because the parents didn't have the gun secured.
Correct. And, I also, strong, we should teach the kids how to handle firearms correctly and the firearm safety, so they know what happens. Because we might have kids who are like, pointing a gun around thinking it's a toy.
But why are they having access to guns to begin with?
We shouldn't just let them go up and grab guns and walk around with them without parent supervision.
But why should they be having guns, period? They're kids. Why can't we just let them grow up and, introduce them to guns maybe when they're teenagers, but when they're kids, I don't think that's appropriate.
And I kind of see where you're coming from on that. I guess my big thing is, if we teach people about safety and how to be safe with these firearms, we could potentially, and of course, we've never tried to, put this in widespread to any level of society that I'm aware of as of now. If we were to introduce the firearms to the kids at a young age on how to work them and how, hey, these are dangerous. If you see one, tell your parents. Or tell
how young is young? Like, what are you proposing for the age limit?
I think it depends on I think it depends on the kid. I mean, you could have a kid who, just quite frankly isn't mature enough to handle it at all or safely handle it. But that's one age. But then that same age from another kid might be that same mature, that might have more maturity and be able to handle one with the maturity.
So would you be for having the kids pass psychological tests to determine if they are at a mature level to be able to handle guns? I mean, as a Democratic candidate, I'm open to suggestion. I'm not closed off like the front runners are, because again, I do agree with you. If we introduce them and remove the whole stigma, like, in Europe, most kids start drinking wine at age 12, and you don't have the alcoholic rates in Europe that you have in America. And I do think you are onto something if we introduce guns earlier, but then again, we have to determine when is too young, and would you be okay with making sure they can pass psychological tests to make sure they can mentally and emotionally handle such a thing?
Now, my big thing with psychological testing for a gun, as much as I think, let's say someone who has split personality, I don't have it, but let's say someone who has split personality disorder, frankly, shouldn't own a gun. As much as it kind of is their right to, it's not safe for them to own a gun necessarily, because they could be one person moment who is perfectly responsible, and then the next moment someone who's completely irrational and such, and just go out haywire and violent.
Mm.
And or even people who are severely schizophrenic, who are, 1 minute, and I've been around people who are schizophrenic, and it's 1 minute they're super cool, your best friend, the next minute they're all pissed off at you for some random reason that they should never be pissed off at you for. And I think we do need to look at some of the psychological factors to it, because I think a lot of our gun issues are the mental health. But my concern with with passing psychological tests and able to own a gun, and I'm just going to put, as in a broad any age type thing, is who is a psychologist or psychiatrist or this mental health professional who's going to evaluate for that? Is this going to be a government picked individual? Is this going to be a family picked individual? Because if, let's say, a governor or president who is completely anti-gun gets to pick these psychiatrists or psychologists or mental health professionals, for lack of a better word, and keep it more widespread, they may pick them that will never grant that. Very similar thing is the California CHL. It's almost impossible to get a concealed handgun license in California.
Well, that's because they make it impossible. And what I want to do is make it possible. And I want to make sure that we'll obviously have standards that they'll have to follow. And if it makes people feel comfortable, I'm okay for having, two psychologists, one that is appointed by the government and one that is appointed by the family person, and then they can mesh it out, and then if need be they can go to court and have a judge decide. Because again, if somebody is of legal sound mind, I'm not opposed to them having a gun. And I do agree that California makes it way too hard, and we don't need to do that here in Oregon. But again, we do need to make sure that the person is of mature sound mind to be able to hold or even use a gun. I mean, I
Right.
myself think kids should have guns, period, but I'm open to it, provided we have some safety precautions in place.
Yeah, and I agree. If kids are handling guns, there needs to be safety precautions, but how we go about that is, we need to have a responsible parent with them, or a responsible adult with them to do that, to be able to handle them. We shouldn't hand a kid a gun of any sort and say, here, go, say, I think once you hit 12, it might be a little different depending on the maturity level and hunting and stuff, a little different, say, hey, we're going out hunting. Here's your hunting gun. Go hike around by yourself with a walkie-talkie so we can communicate, and we'll meet back here in, say, an hour. But we should, having kids just say, here's a firearm, walk around town with a firearm without any adult supervision would be very reckless.
But isn't that what you're doing by letting the 12-year-old go hunting unsupervised? Because there's no adult. You just said, here's your walkie-talkie, check back in with me for an hour. That I'm not for. No, it needs to be supervised at all times. I mean, I think 12 is a good starting age, because that's the starting age in Europe for alcohol drinking. Go ahead.
It's at least a starting age to be able to hunt in Oregon. So it does make, as much as I think we should be teaching kids depending on, parents' discretion is kind of where my big thing is on it still. But it does make, even me now stop and think, well, we do have a hunting starts at, I believe it is 12. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong on the exact age, but I believe it's 12. And so why 12? Why not 5? Why is it 12? Maybe there's a reason, maybe there's more, behind it. So I mean, you do.
I don't know why 12. It just sounds like a good number. And I definitely want kids to enjoy hunting. I myself would love to hunt, but it's kind of hard to hold a gun while hopping on one foot. Obviously I'm going to make too much noise and the deer are going to run away. But I do believe that it doesn't matter whether you're 12, 13, or 14, you need to have adult supervision at all times. This notion of, go kill a deer and come back in an hour. No, 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 no. You're opening yourself up to way too many possible liabilities.
Right. And I and I do to an extent agree with you. It's, we still need the parents, like I said, it's parent discretion, because frankly, nobody's going to know the kid better than their parents.
Right.
And so is this kid going to go out and deer hunt by himself? And I'm not saying completely by himself. Let me be clear on that. Both the parent and the kid are out there hunting.
Right. But is the parent, though, with the kid at all times? Like, does the parent have eyes, or is within the vicinity of the kid at all times? Like, the kid isn't, right, so far away that the only way they can communicate is via walkie-talkie. I know we're really splitting hairs here, but when I say supervision, I mean the parent needs to have eyes on or within the vicinity at all times, because accidents happen. A deer may run out and knock the kid over. You never know. And
and I'm with accidents happen, I'm well aware that, back when I was I think I was in middle school at the time, the high school at our school, there were two kids who went out. I can't recall if it was hunting or if they just went out to go shooting and, that sort of stuff. Well, this one of the kids tossed the firearm to the other individual, which went off and killed him.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And so you do have a side. It's these are even that was even a high schooler who did that. So I mean, you do, it depends, like I said, it really does depend on the parents. And I think that's kind of where I'm stuck at. I don't know if we're going to get any closer than that on it.
Well, I mean, you're not going to get any closer than with any other candidate, because I'm the only candidate who's even talking about letting kids have guns, because again, the Second Amendment is the law of the land, and I'll make sure that people are able to, like, hunting is a very good, enjoyable sport. And, when you hunt, you don't take an AK-47, you take a hunting rifle.
It depends, because, I mean, the other thing that, we got to think of is, the AK-47, they are both, hunting rifle to it. I mean, I guess what I'm thinking is something that, if you look down to the mechanics of the gun compared to some of the mechanics of other hunting rifles, I think it was a military rifle before they adopted the AR-15 look to it. It was very much your traditional looking hunting rifle, except it was semi-auto. The AR functions the exact same way. And the big thing I'm an advocate more for the AR side is, and you can kind of, there's some, counterpoints I can think of on it, but you have more control over that firearm. So you're not going to, and this is I guess more so in a self-defense scenario with it, is you have more control over that firearm. So I'm in a house with, say, 5 people, and I have some crazy guy come in my house and start trying to, kill people with a knife or a gun or whatever. I could take my AR and more accurately put down a shot due to how I can hold it compared to a bolt action or even a traditional hunting rifle.
Right. I'm definitely not opposed to having types of weapons in your home, but carrying them concealed or out in public, that's definitely starting to really push the envelope.
Yeah. And I can see where you're coming from. And I'm still, I've been kind of, the idea of open carry for me, because, I'm a, like I said, the Second Amendment activist, I'm a Second Amendment activist at the same, and the idea of open carry for me is, you talk to a lot of other Second Amendment activists, and a lot of them are, well, you're carrying around a gun, you're going to be a target, that's stupid type thing. And my counter to that always is that it's very similar to how security works. Is and I work security. It's security is a deterrent. Well, open carrying a gun is just as much of a deterrent, in my opinion. It may make you the first target, but you're also a deterrent. If I'm open carrying my sidearm now, open carrying an AR in a store might go a little overboard. Am I against it? Not. It doesn't sound very logical. I'll be honest on that. Am I against it? Not necessarily. And I guess it is their right to do that right now, but it does sound pretty illogical. There's a time and a place to open carry an AR.
And what is that time and place? And
a grocery store isn't that time. It really, in my opinion, isn't that time and place. Regardless, even though it is sort of your right to do so.
But why would you want to carry that weapon in a grocery store? I mean,
that's what I think.
When is there a time and place to carry an AK-47 in open?
I think, and I think that's a good question. I think that's a very, very fair question. It's in a lot of it, you go back to the riots back in was it 2020 that it started?
Oh, the BLM riots. Oh, yeah. I lived through them. I live in downtown Portland, and I bike, and it was like a set of a Hollywood movie. Apocalypse. Oh, right. I mean, it was crazy, Zach. I was like, wow.
Eugene was crazy. And the idea of having to hire security guards at such a rapidly alarming rate to hire these security guards to protect these businesses, when frankly, security guards have no obligation to act, just to observe and report.
Right, and that needs to change in Oregon. That's crazy. Right. What's the whole point of having security guards if they're not going to secure? That is in their title, security.
Right. Right. We have, we should, and it all depends on the site. Some sites want us to do one thing and some sites want us to do other things. And we got to follow those site procedures, especially if we've agreed to contract.
But if you're going to be put in a volatile situation where you have to protect a building and there are armed protesters coming, you should be able to protect the building and yourself. Right. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that at all.
And the other idea is security companies right now are so understaffed, and that's every single security company that I have worked. The past 3 security companies I worked for are so understaffed that they can barely give their employees time off because they don't have anyone to fill in for those shifts.
Is that because they don't pay these people enough?
Or a lot of these security companies have increased their wages to so high it's not even funny. Like a couple of the security companies are starting at $22 an hour.
Well, that's good. So I'm not.
It's good money.
Shortage. Yeah.
It's good money, but some other security companies are paying them dirt cheap. And
like the security company at my building only pays people $15 an hour. I'm sorry, but no, I'm not risking my life for $15 an hour.
That's kind of, you got to love the job to do the job when you're working security at some companies. And, the company I work for now, I get paid pretty good, but the old company the first security company I worked for, I had to love my job to do my job, and I loved my job. So I did my job, even though I was making set minimum wage.
Ooh.
And it was at a mill. So, I mean, it wasn't as much of high risk as some other sites, but it has its own level of risks. Mm-hmm. And when I found out how much our company was actually getting paid per officer, which I'm not going to say publicly how I found out this, I was like, screw this. I'm done here. Mm-hmm. I went and applied for another security company and was hired like not even 48 hours later because of how much they need security officers right now.
So what can I do as governor to help with these shortages?
I think I think it's not necessarily, I don't think there's much we can do about the shortages, but I think what you could do to increase people joining this field is look at, a lot of people think we're considered first responders, even though we are first on the scene for everything almost, and yet we don't get that same recognition as first responders.
So you want to be given the classification as first responder slash paramedics, or
I want to be recognized as a first responder, at least in the state of Oregon, and have those same benefits that first responders have in the state of Oregon.
So would those benefits come out of the state or from your security company?
I guess what I mean by benefits is, and I think it would have to come out of the state in a sense. And I think a lot of the benefits that I'm thinking are, you go to the store, certain stores, and you get, say, 10% off. Well, security guards don't get that yet. More security guard, I think it's 2 for security guards die for every police officer that dies in the line of duty.
Oh, wow.
More security officers die doing their job than police officers die doing their job.
So this discount at stores, is it offered voluntarily by?
I do believe it's offered voluntarily, but it's also a lot of the time advertised as first responders, which, as I said, security guards don't fall under first responders. And I think raising more awareness to what security guards go through and, what we do for the community and would be a lot, nice, because we don't get the recognition that we deserve through people outside, and even some companies don't give us the recognition we deserve. But the first company I worked for paid me dirt cheap. Second company I worked for didn't give 2 craps about their employees. This company I'm working for now, I'm not going to disclose the name of any of the companies I work for, just so I don't get sued for defamation or anything else.
Not defamation if it's a fact.
Well, it is a fact. I don't want him to go after me for anything, I guess. The security company I work for now, they're amazing. They pay us good. They care about us. It's amazing.
Well, then you shouldn't mention their name so we can, use them to see what they're doing right.
I know my work wouldn't want me to do that due to contract and other reasons, so I can't really, and nor am I speaking on behalf of any security company. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my own thoughts. I guess I got to be clear on that, especially because we're posting this online.
Right. Well, the thing is, what we need to do is we need to reach out to security companies that are doing it correct. And I'm glad that you found a company that actually values you for you and what you can bring. Now, would you be open to security officers being made part-time police officers? Because if we could do that would open the door.
That is the other thing is maybe, we have, say I live in Eugene. So we have Eugene Police Department who has jurisdiction over Eugene. Then we have state troopers who have jurisdiction over the state of Oregon. We have county officers who have jurisdiction over the county. Maybe we need to look at giving security officers jurisdiction over their site while still allowing EPD to also have that jurisdiction. So when the security officers on shift, we have jurisdiction as well as EPD. We also need to look at the state potentially funding the companies to increase their insurance, to give the companies better insurance to allow us to, and maybe even giving the security companies, what's the word for it? What do they use?
Liability.
Immunity, I guess, is the right word for it.
But liability, immunity.
Yeah, except maybe hold the security companies, the security guard liable, but leave the security companies unliable for it, for the security guard's actions, because it's not the security guard's company that the security guard decides to do something wrong.
Yes, but ultimately it is because the security company hired that person.
They did hire us. Add some sort of immunity to it and increase our insurance so they can allow us, because some security companies don't even allow us to carry handcuffs or OC or anything.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, Zach, I want to remove immunity protections, not expand them.
Yeah, and I think, we need to look at how can we maybe, you know, encourage security companies to allow security guards to have a little more power over what they're doing, because I can look at my training handbook from when I got my license, and I can look at my employee handbook for the company I work for, and what I can do according to my card is completely different than what I can do according to my employee handbook.
Oh, wow. Well, that makes no sense.
Right, it doesn't. And some companies are a lot more lax than other companies on it.
Right. We do need to have a more uniformity across
Right.
all companies, because like you said, some companies like your company is very good, and then others are lackadaisical, and it gives security companies a bad name. And then we all think all security companies are rotten apples.
Right. And, it's, increasing the insurance for the security companies and having the state assist with that, security company increase of insurance to allow them to hire officers that, say I'm starting up a security company, but I can't afford the top tier insurance and able to allow my security guards to carry handcuffs or OC or something to defend themselves with, or even allow to get armed security guards in play, depending on how far we want to take it. I wouldn't know, and I can't afford that type of insurance, and I have to say, here, security guards, we're going to go out and do this until we can figure out our insurance to cover it. Get new insurance to cover it if we do decide to do that, if we get enough profits off of it.
I'm
rather
certainly
than have the
open
state
to
step in and help.
all of these suggestions. Absolutely. So if I become governor, Zach, I will definitely have to be reaching out to you.
Yeah.
Because you definitely know way more about this field than I do. And I do agree with you that, we need to really address these shortages, and the issues you raise are very good reasons.
Right. And we need to figure out how can we encourage more security guards to start working for security rather than having some security guards and people that I've met, and even myself included. I have seen so much stuff working security that it's not even funny. And it's just stuff that I still have nightmares over. And then I step out and I don't get recognized by people outside of my employer half the time. Like I go walk in, into a store that offers a first responder discount. And even though I am technically the first responder on a lot of scenes, because I'm the first one there, someone commits suicide, for example, on my site, and I am witness it, or I am there, or I get the first call to be there, and I'm the first one there. Am I not considered the first responder for that?
I would say you are, yeah. So we definitely need a major reform.
Yeah, and by legal definition, I'm not. And that sucks. And then I do want to go into that OHP thing that we were talking about over the email as well.
Ah, yes.
Because I think that was another important thing I wanted to cover. And I guess I kind of want what your view on that is. Again,
I want to expand Oregon Health Plan to all Oregonians, regardless of income or immigration status. We're going to have to establish a median income, and so for all of those people that fall below it, they will pay absolutely nothing. All those that go above it, they will pay it, and we're going to base it on a sliding scale based on the income. But it's still going to be cheaper than having private healthcare, because ultimately, I would like everyone to go on OHP, but I'm not going to make the same mistakes that Obamacare did and try to force everybody off of private healthcare, because for some people, private healthcare does work. I can't stand private healthcare, but again, it's not for me to decide. But for those who want to join OHP, I want to make sure that they can join OHP. With OHP, there'll be no deductibles, no premiums, no out-of-pocket costs unless you are above the income guideline, and there'll be no redetermination. And your OHP will be accepted anywhere in the state that an OHP provider there is. Because right now, we have what are called CCOs, care coordinated organizations, and they basically lock you into networks. And I don't think that's very freeing or really good, because then you can only go see providers in that network. And if you ever like move, then you're stuck in the geography with no networks. And so we need to really clear it up. OHP isn't perfect, but I definitely want to make sure that we can improve it. And just because it's not working for some people doesn't mean we can't make it work for everybody.
Right. And I think, and I agree with you. And I know a lot of people on the right-leaning side of politics are going to disagree with what I say right now. But yeah, and I'm looking at it from a drastically different perspective than they are, as being someone who has both physical and developmental issues. I have high functioning autism, and then my entire right side doesn't function 100%. And am seeing my primary care doctor every 2 to 3 months to go over the medications to treat the physical issues, and I'm seeing a therapist every week and a physical therapist every week, and seeing all the specialists that I need to see and the medications that I'm on to help with my anxiety and my chronic pain and all that sort of stuff. If I didn't have OHP right now, I would not be able to afford even my apartment. Or even groceries, for that matter. It would probably take up my entire paycheck.
Well, yes, I mean, there are people still filing for medical bankruptcy in 2022, and that is just a crime. Healthcare is not a luxury or privilege. It is a human right, and I want to add that to our state constitution. And you are a prime example of why private healthcare doesn't work. All they see you is as a big dollar sign, and all they see are all of the pre-existing conditions they legally don't have to cover, and that is wrong. And I do think it is ironic that all the people who were protesting Obamacare on the right side, they all are on it and they love it. It's like you can't have it both ways. You can't protest it and then be a part of it. Make up your mind and stick with it.
And what OHP covers and what a lot of private health insurances that I've seen cover are two completely different things. If I'm paying 15%, if my, I guess, better example, if my health insurance company only, covers one primary care visit a year, well, that only covers one out of my, up to 6 primary care visits I need a year, on top of any other medical emergencies that may come up that I need to follow up with them about.
Well, with OHP right now, you can see your primary care provider as many times as you want. All emergency room and urgent care visits are covered. And what a lot of people don't know is you can actually use OHP at any emergency room outside of Oregon.
Yeah. And what I mean is by private health insurance, and I'm on OHP because I don't have really any other option to afford anything.
And there's nothing wrong with being on OHP.
And that's the other thing is I want to work for a security company that may pay me more. I want to, but I know if I leave to a different security company, I might no longer qualify for OHP, which has the benefits that me having the issues I have need.
Right. And under my plan, it doesn't matter how much money you're making, you will keep your OHP regardless of what company you're with, whether you're a student, unemployed, nothing changes. I'm going to get rid of all of the red tape that really hangs up people.
Yeah. And then I think my one question on that I have to kind of play, advocate, devil's advocate to an extent on is how would how would we cover that without raising people's increase in taxes by a drastic amount? Because we're already paying almost a third. By the time we pay federal and state tax, we're already paying almost a third of the income.
This is very true, yes. And so those who go above the income threshold will be paying premiums. And then Joe Biden is going to have to step in and pay a lot of it because Oregon by itself, like I told you in my email, cannot afford OHP for all. But I'm pretty confident that Biden will be tickled to death. There's a state that wants to implement single-payer healthcare, and I think he will definitely go for it. We may need to raise taxes down the road. I don't know exactly how we're going to pay for all of it, but right now what we need to do is tackle the actual legal and legislative obstacle of opening up OHP for all.
Right. And what's your thoughts on the start so that, this is just an idea too, get a start on it so that we could get people who really, really need it on it, and then worry about other people who, down the line, say, and we can work on all the, like you said, the legal aspects of getting whether the federal government pays for it and how else we're going to pay for other things. And essentially almost a trial run is people who have, a disability or that, say requires said much or whatever that might not qualify for SSDI, still will be able to get health insurance that's going to cover the things they need for their disability and other medical issues, and cover people such as that to start, and then further down the line work on establishing it to where it increases to other people as well outside of that.
Well, on my first day as governor, I will call the necessary legislatures and have them start drafting the bill so we can actually have OHP for all within my first 100 days. I've been in Salem a couple of times, and they definitely don't make it easy passing bills, but I'm going to get started on day one. And again, when I say OHP for all, regardless of income, I mean just that. It doesn't matter what your income is, you will qualify. Right now, they're actually talking about kicking off 300,000 people off of OHP because the pandemic emergency is being ended, and a lot of people were only on OHP because of coronavirus. But now they're going to be changing those rules, and if I become governor, I will stop that. We don't need to be kicking people off of OHP. We need to be inviting more people onto OHP.
Right, and of course, like you said, we're going to have to figure out how can we fund this without, all the whole tax.
I mean, ultimately, taxes are going to have to go up. So the question is where, maybe we could raise marijuana taxes. I would like to introduce what I call an excise tax. Basically, if you can afford to buy a car, you can afford to pay a little bit more in taxes. If you can afford to buy something expensive, you can afford to pay taxes. So I'll make sure that the taxes that are raised don't hit those who are working minimum wage jobs, who are struggling day to day. I want to make sure that people who are going to have their taxes raised can afford to pay a little bit more. I'm not going to lie to you, taxes will have to go up. We just have to figure out where and on whom. And like right now, there are people in Oregon, like Amazon, they're not paying any income taxes, and that is just crazy. Walmart, like these people need to pay their taxes.
The other thing like you said, raising tax on marijuana is a very good thing to look at, because why are you I guess people have, like you said, from the libertarian side of my view is people have the right to do what they want and shouldn't have a ton of government interference with it. But at the same, and even taxes are on the questionable side, but of course, I think we all know we have to pay taxes of some sort to keep society
right. The government
running.
Needs the money somewhere, exactly.
Right, to keep society running. And if we don't have taxes keeping society running, then we're just going to crash and it's going to turn into a crap show.
Basically.
And so we will have, like you said, we will have to have taxes somewhere. But why do people need marijuana? It's not a need. It's I guess for some people medical wise maybe, but for the general public, if these people who I guess I'm trying to think of the right word to use, I guess houseless, I guess is what a lot of people are using now, so I'll just use that word, I guess.
Houseless, homeless, without homes, yes.
Yeah, I don't really know what word's correct anymore,
Oh, neither do I. I gave up on it a long time ago. This political correctness has gone overboard. At the end of the day, these people don't have homes.
And I guess, how if they can afford $1,000 iPhone and marijuana, then they should be able, then they shouldn't even be homeless at that point.
Well,
depending on the situation.
The problem is that housing is a very complicated issue.
Right.
Just finding an apartment, like the application fee is usually what, $45, $50. If you apply 10 places, that's $100 gone right there. Well, most places want first month's and last month's rent. Right. So moving into an apartment is very cost prohibitive. You have to have at least $3,000 laying around.
The other thing is you get evicted and I know I have a friend, you get evicted from one apartment, that screws your entire rental history and you're not going to get an apartment again.
Right. And what I want to do is look at removing that from your record, especially this is why I'm the only candidate for governor on the Democratic side who wants to pardon all ex-convicts who did not commit violent or sexual related crimes. Because how can you get an even start if you have a criminal record and nobody wants to hire you, nobody wants to give you housing, and you're all but damned to either be homeless or go back into the prison system. And so I want to clear those records.
What's your thoughts on, so I have a few, like 2 more things that I want to try to, I think we're probably running out of time here soon.
I'm actually surprised they didn't kick us out because they said it's only 40 minutes, but we've been on this chat for more than 40 minutes.
Yeah. So let's try to wrap it up just in case it does kick us off soon.
Well, I can always create another meeting.
Awesome. Yeah. So what another thing that's important for me is the juvenile justice system definitely needs reforming. What's your what's your thoughts on this, and how would you look at reforming that?
Well, actually, you're speaking to a juvenile delinquent himself. I was abused by my parents, and I actually had to seek the protection of the juvenile delinquent system to leave them because Pennsylvania did not consider them spanking me as child abuse, them starving me as child abuse. They didn't consider it anyway because it was all protected under First Amendment rights. And so I had to literally fight with the state of Pennsylvania to be taken out of their home and put into juvenile detention. And so I'm not sure how the juvenile system compares from Oregon to Pennsylvania, but in my case, the juvenile system actually saved me. And I know there's a lot of misfunding. There's a lot of very bad foster parents. So I'm definitely open to investigations and actually reforming this whole system wholesale.
Yeah, like my personal opinion on the reform is, and a lot of my friends have been, a lot of my old friends from high school have been to the juvenile, have been through that system. Well, once they're out of the juvenile detention center or whatever we want to call it, because I think it's like 3 different names you can call it, they come home and they're on probation. Well, if they go home to a family that maybe is abusive or harder to get along with or whatever that may be, or anything, they make one small mistake, they go back. And then they have this record on them for a long time. I mean, I think it gets wiped once you turn 18.
Yes, the record is expunged when you turn 18.
It still impacts you up until you're 18, I guess, to an extent.
I'm not sure how. I mean, you're not working while you're under 18. You're basically going to school. I do think we need to make probation more friendly. And also, I do agree with you that returning somebody to the same environment they came from is just idiotic and counterproductive. And that's
without looking into that environment. You're right. It is idiotic because we're returning someone to an environment that could be abusive and be the whole reason why they acted out and assaulted or hurt someone.
And that's why we need to look for foster parents that actually care about these kids, not just want to check from the government. And there are a lot of people who would love to do it, but becoming a foster parent in Oregon is very, very hard. I don't know what's harder, getting a gun or becoming a foster parent in Oregon. I mean seriously, it's
probably getting a gun is probably easier. I mean,
probably
there's still steps you have to go through. Yes, I mean, I have my concealed handgun license and own numerous different guns of numerous different types. And like I said, I build ARs for fun because I find it very, I'm able to focus on something and, keep my hands busy, and it helps my anxiety a lot.
Well, unfortunately, Zach, my hands have been idle since the day I was born.
Yeah. So I guess here's my ideas. Since I know, here's the other question I had is, since I think for lack of a better words, the right and left of politics, and Republican and Democrat, whatever we want to call them, disagree on a lot. And what's your thoughts on them? What my beliefs are might be good, but what everybody wants might be different. Like, would you potentially look at things when it comes to things that are drastically different, such as, gun bills and stuff like that, say, well, let's go ahead and put it on a ballot and say there's a ballot every 3 months at any sort of, say, controversial bill such as gun rights or even gun control for that matter, and things that are the bigger buzzword topics get sent out on a ballot every 3 months and get looked at to say, well, the majority of the population likes this, so we're going to go with that and all, type thing.
Well, I mean, ballot initiatives are actually preferable because you actually have the whole electorate voting, not just 200 people who were elected by big dollar corporate and special interests. So I would definitely push for that. And obviously, I would always make sure, that whatever we're passing, is it constitutional? And if we're limiting something, are our limitations reasonable? Because like you said, Oregon does make you jump through so many hoops. I want to reduce some of those because I do think you should have to jump through hoops if you're going to have a gun, but not as many as you have to jump through for now. Same thing with becoming a foster parent. We want to make sure that, yes, you're not a pedophile or you have some kind of violent crime, but we want to make sure that people who do want to be foster parents can become foster parents because there are so many kids in the system that are dying for somebody to love them. And we're just holding them back and just keeping them locked up. And then we wonder why they turn 18 and they go from juvenile detention into the prison pipeline. It's like, well, hello. I mean, what did you expect,
And then one other topic I think it's one other topic I want to try to go over is the whole COVID-19 stuff. And I know this is a really big buzzword that we're probably going to disagree with some stuff on because a lot of my view is, being a libertarian, my view on things is very much pro-choice. And just because something is politically okay does not mean it's morally and ethically okay.
Now, when you say pro-choice, you're talking about a pro-abortion or pro-choice?
Well, kind of both. I mean, my view on abortion is it is morally and ethically wrong. But does that mean it is morally and ethically wrong for everyone? I do believe it shouldn't be state funded, but unless the mother it's the mother's life or the baby's life type thing, and the mother can have the option to say, hey, do I want my baby or do I want me?
But why are we not making exceptions for a case of rape, incest, or health? I mean, it's not the fetus' fault that it got there because it was rape. And
let's be
in a life of life.
Let's be clear. There's enough. I'm sure there's enough, people who are completely for abortion that would step up and create nonprofit groups. I'm not saying we shouldn't allow nonprofit groups who are complete pro-abortion to run and allow. So if Planned Parenthood can get the funding, I guess Planned Parenthood does other things as well, despite what a lot of people on the right think.
Actually, yes, Planned Parenthood does so much planning besides abortion. People don't know that. Yes.
Right. But if they can get the funding from other people who are taking it through donations, all the power to them to hold the abortions. I might not agree with abortion. I might not morally and ethically agree with abortion. But again, my morals and ethics might not align with other people's morals and ethics. And
you're speaking to a very, very pro-choice candidate. We will never agree. I do agree with state funding, which you don't agree with. If a woman wants to abort, it is her right. If we men had babies, it wouldn't even be a debate. It would be solved and gone. So why we can tell a woman what to do with her body is beyond me.
Right. And here's the other thing is, like I said, it's why should, I'm not a female, so I don't know what, the whole, what my view is. Frankly, I'm not a female, so should I be the one making those decisions? Probably not.
No.
Without talking to the females about, hey, what are your thoughts on this? So, it's very, tricky. But I guess my big view was the COVID pandemic with the masks and the vaccine and all that is kind of what I want to see your views on. Because as me with what some of my sensory issues that I have, wearing a mask caused me to have panic attacks. That they were tight on my face, they were uncomfortable, and I try to schedule a lot of my appointments via Zoom. I try. When I went grocery shopping, I picked grocery stores that didn't mind too much. If I could tell them I had a medical exemption, they'd just let me in. But also, doctors would refuse to sign medical exemptions because
Oh,
of
I
stuff.
was in the same boat. Yes, because I don't have
And
arms and putting a mask on. I mean,
right,
it's not impossible, but it is very difficult.
right, and it's sort of the same with me. It's not impossible for me to wear one, but it's very difficult without having that panic attack. And one of the examples that I actually think I should bring up is I've never been discriminated. Also, something else about me is I'm gay, and
Oh,
I've
so am
never.
I. And
And I
without making too light of it, do you
right.
know how you end all abortions?
Is this a joke, right?
No, this is actually
No,
serious, but it could be a joke. Do you know how you end all abortions?
not exactly.
You go gay. I mean, I have yet to see a man knocked up after a fun night in the bedroom.
Right.
Same thing with lesbians, you can't get pregnant with two women, unless you do cloning. But yes, and so because there are so many unwanted pregnancies, and if we were to encourage more people to go gay and be happy, you wouldn't have these unwanted pregnancies.
Right. And I guess um thing I was bringing up was I've never been discriminated against up until this pandemic happened. And I walked into now, didn't you, if I read that your stuff correctly, didn't you sue Fred Meyers or Kroger?
I most certainly did. They fired me because they wanted me to carry my bike up a flight of stairs into a smoking section instead of wheeling it to the front door. And I told them, well, obviously that's not going to be possible. I don't have any arms.
Yeah.
And that I'm going to need an accommodation. And they accommodated me right out the door. So I gave them the middle toe, and I can give the middle toe, Zach. I won't do it here. We'll do it privately. And then I sued them because it was absolutely absurd. I mean, here you have an individual with a major physical disability. He could stay on welfare and just collect Social Security, but no, he chooses to work, chooses to pay taxes, chooses to be a productive member of society because he can. I actually got luck with my disability because I use my feet for both hands and feet. And so I've been customer service most of my life, and I'm very good at it. And that's actually what I do right now is work for Care Oregon, and I'm working from home with my two cats. And so it's usually me on the bed, them on the bed, and we just talking away. I mean, I can't believe sometimes I get paid to exercise the gift of gab. And so we ended up settling, and Kroger, of course, admitted no wrongdoing, but still, yes. And it was covered by the Washington Post within 5 minutes, Zach, of my lawyer filing the lawsuit. I mean, it was great. Did you watch the video?
I'm not sure. I'll have to go look through again, probably watch
Okay,
it.
I'll send you the link because I've got tons of videos.
So what happened to me was I walk in to pick up my prescriptions, and I was going in every month to pick up my prescriptions that I needed, some of which would prevent me from having a panic attacks, controlling my anxiety, my chronic pain medication. I walk into the pharmacy for months, the entire beginning of the pandemic, never had a single issue. So I didn't bother asking for an accommodation of, hey, will you maybe do curbside? Will you meet me out in the regular store area and give them to me? Will you deliver them? What accommodations will you provide me? I didn't bother doing that because they didn't care at the time. Well, later on down the line, I walk into the pharmacy, this usual day, wait in line, get up, pick up my prescriptions, and they tell me to put on a mask. I tell them I can't. And I have a medical exemption. Well, they decide to go ahead and tell me, well, then we're not giving them to you. I'm like, so you are discriminating against me. And they refuse to say yes, of course, because
did you show them your medical exemption?
I don't have the paperwork because of it. Because again, doctors won't sign those openly.
Because I did get a medical exemption because in my apartment, they wanted me to wear a mask from the time I left the door to the time I left the building. And I told them that wasn't possible. And so I had an urgent care actually issue me the medical exemption. And they actually were in the process of filing a complaint against me to try to evict me. And with the medical exemption, I was able to get that renixed.
It's a lot harder when it comes to things such as panic attacks, etc. But
it's still disability though. They can't discriminate. And that's what I want to do as governor is, you have what we call a hidden disability. It's not obvious.
And then I have physical issues, which is kind of obvious, but I mean, you're not going to see it me sitting down. If you watch me walk around, I use a cane to walk around. You're gonna see it. And
what I want to do as governor is make sure that hidden disabilities are treated as validly as visible disabilities like me.
Yeah, because then, I actually, following that, called a friend, I guess a group I was part of, who is very much for constitutional rights. It's, they're not, a lot of people tend to label them right-leaning. It's the People's Rights Organization. But they just agree that people have their rights, and if they're not going to be exercised, we're going to act in an appropriate manner to deal with it without violence. We're going to be peaceful about it, whether that means protests or calling them and expressing our, displeasure about it, or whatever that may be. Or we send someone who can do something for someone who can't do something to help them out. Well, I called them and they ended up getting a hold of Fred Meyer, customer service or whatever, which then ended up working with the pharmacy to have one of their other members come and pick my prescriptions up for me. And they picked up my prescriptions and drove them to my house. Well, I figured
they offered to deliver your prescription since you couldn't physically get them yourself.
So that's where I'm getting to, actually. So the following month, I show up, no issues, picking up my prescription. The same person who discriminated against me didn't say anything to me at all. He was the one who helped me. And then I'm like, okay, so that phone, they must have fixed it via the phone call that they had. And so there were no issues that time. Well, I come back a month later for the third month to go pick up my prescriptions, and I was discriminated against again. In fact, the first time I was discriminated against, I was completely peaceful, asking them about it, trying to be respectful and everything. And they actually had their loss prevention and their armed security walk me and escort me out of the store. And I didn't resist.
For you.
I didn't resist. I didn't anything. I was very peaceful. If they would have asked me to leave, I left. They asked me to leave. The armed security escorted me out of the store. Didn't resist at all. And so the third month I show up, they discriminate against me again. And at this point I say, okay, what accommodations can you offer me then? Because even the Fred Meyer's manager at the store said that they should be able to offer you accommodations. I said, if I can't wear a mask, what accommodations can you offer me? Their response to that was none. Go find another pharmacy.
Wow.
So blatantly saying that anybody who has a disability who cannot wear a mask cannot attend or cannot go and pick up prescriptions or get prescriptions from that pharmacy.
I'm not sure why they discriminate against you, because I shop at Fred Meyer as well, even though I sued them. And I never wear a mask. I mean, obviously, it's obvious why I don't wear a mask. I'm not sure why they give you such difficulty. And the good news is mask mandates have been lifted, so they're not in place. And I'm
other than the medical stuff, which I have mixed feelings about, because it like I said, I have really big mixed feelings about it. It's all depends on where you go with it.
Well, my solution is, everybody should be vaccinated if you can. Those with medical exemptions should be respected for if they can be vaccinated. But if you can be vaccinated, there is no reason why you should have to wear a mask ever again.
And and I guess my other thing is, I guess you might be able to answer this question because it's probably one of the first civil people I've sat down and actually talked to about it. So I'm actually happy to be able to ask this question to someone, especially now. I'm not vaccinated, nor do I have any intent to get it for the next, say, 10 years, because I am truly concerned about the long-term side effects. And with my age and stuff and my general medical history, I have little to no risk of dying from COVID. Plus, if I don't feel good, it's common sense to stay home and not be around people. And, or at the very least, if I do have to leave my house, wear a mask and not breathe in people's face. I mean, I guess that's common sense. I guess common sense isn't that common anymore.
It's not, no. Sadly, it went out the door when they meant to put Joe Biden in the Alzheimer's ward, but mistook the West Wing instead.
Right. So
what was your question?
I guess where I was getting was, if a vaccine works, right? I guess I was looking up the definition of vaccine not too long ago, and it is to prevent an illness is a specific definition. Might not be 100% effective because
no vaccine
is 100% effective, and I think we can agree on that much.
Yeah.
But the COVID vaccine, since the beginning of the vaccine been put out, they have changed their story 20 times almost. They're
if not more. Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, it'll prevent COVID. Didn't end up preventing COVID. Then it ended up saying, oh, it'll this or oh that, or oh now it's at the point where, oh, it just makes the illnesses less severe. Well, I hate to say it, I disagree with that because I caught COVID. My friend caught COVID. My friend was vaccinated with all the boosters and everything. Well, I guess we're no longer friends for various reasons, but that's not important here.
Oh, well, that's not good.
I have trouble making friends, part of my issues. But
well, I hope you and I can be friends, whether I win or lose.
You're actually probably one of the favorite Democrats I've met.
And don't take it personally, but if we ever do meet, I will never, ever be shaking your hand. As you can see, I'm a bit short-handed. Right. For once, we can't find COVID-19 or COVID Kate.
Right. So, I got COVID, she got COVID, and I had one day I felt like I probably should have gone to the ER. It just was absolutely horrible. But my friend, on the other hand, was sick a lot longer than I was and a lot more severe symptoms.
And he had the vaccine.
And she was vaccinated.
And boosted.
Yes. And that's when I'm like, so we had this joke for that, type thing, because I don't consider myself anti-vax. So let's be clear on that, because I've been vaccinated against everything else, and I don't have a I don't necessarily have a problem with all vaccines. And for me, anti-vax is being against all vaccines.
But what is your problem though with the COVID-19 vaccine? Because hundreds of millions of Americans have taken it, myself included, and we have no side effects. Like you said, no vaccine is perfect. Some people have had horrible side effects. And as governor, I want to remove the immunity from the companies because they need to be responsible for their product. But at the end of the day, though, what is your objection to COVID-19 vaccine?
My first thing is the Pfizer. So I there's a few different things that have led up to it, and some of them were later on down the line. My first was, I don't know what the side effects are going to be long term. What's it going to be, say, 10 years down the line from now? Plus, there's a lot of different symptoms. Like the Johnson & Johnson just got highly restricted on who they can give it to now.
Right, because of the heart condition, which happens to be 0.000005%. Right. I got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because I myself am terrified of needles. But when your employer is giving you $200 and the convention center is giving you a $100 Fred Meyer gift card, I'm not going to send you over $300, and the vaccine was free. And of course, I'm running for governor. I can't exactly say I'm a Democrat and not be vaccinated. I'm like, it's a win-win-win, and so I got it.
Right, and I guess my view is, like I said, I really my personal belief, and I know this does sound slightly conspiracy theory-ish,
Hmm.
but I'm not, I'm not as conspiracy theorist as some of the other people that I'm friends with are.
Oh, I've spoken to some serious
Oh
conspiracy
my, yeah,
theories.
you're telling me. Um,
They make the
but
code look like fan fiction.
mine are much more logical in the sense of what, and more of questioning rather than conspiracy theory. Why did Pfizer not want to release the information until 2075? Now,
That is a good question. Yeah.
like, does that not raise some concerns for a lot of people? Rather than, if they want to be transparent and get more people to get vaccinated, be like, here's all the results, have fun.
You would think so, yes.
Because I would have been,
Governor, I will be contacting Pfizer directly and getting those results for myself to see
right.
what exactly they're not
I would have,
transparent.
and like I said, I'm not against getting the COVID vaccine later on down the line, whether that may be 10, 20 years or what, that may be. The but I don't, like I said, I don't know what the long-term side effects are with me having chronic pain issues. I've read multiple blogs from non-political sites such as the Fibromyalgia Association. A lot of people who had fibromyalgia actually suffered I'm trying to remember the severe flare-ups after getting the vaccine that have lasted for prolonged periods of time where they can't even get out of bed.
Right, and Pfizer should be held accountable for that because they should have had more warnings for those with already health immune compromised systems.
And that's the other thing. It's, oh yeah, the CDC says, oh, it's perfectly fine to get that, but then you go to these blogs on these medical advocate websites or medical association websites, and you can read these blogs about people who got the vaccine, like, sorry about that. Then you can read these blogs about people who had these side effects or these crazy things that happen that might not be widespread for everyone, but widespread for the people with those individual issues.
Right, but if you look at the overall aggregate population, they make up not even 1%. I'm not discounting them, but 99% of the people who got vaccinated, myself included, no side effects whatsoever. It is probably the safest vaccine we've ever seen. I didn't get my vaccine until June of 2020. I waited almost 9 months because, like you, I was concerned, okay, well, what's going to happen? And so when I didn't see people dropping dead left and right, I was like, well, doesn't look like a dangerous vaccine. And then, of course, $300, I can't say no to that. So, I know that's not exactly altruistic like a politician, but I'm going to tell you how it is.
Right. And that's what that's what I appreciate about you. And even though we disagree on some stuff, I might actually end up voting for you at this point.
Oh, well, I hope you do.
Just because, we do disagree a lot on the firearm thing, which I think might be, if you get elected, maybe we should sit down again and discuss how can we, or even closer to that primary, if you're, or the general, once, you're on that, if we know you're on that ballot, sit down and talk about, well, let's look on further directly on how maybe we can come to direct middle terms and come up with something we can agree on.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. The other thing is, I'm not going to be spending my political capital on the gun issue because it's not something on my radar. I mean, obviously, if I get a bill that restricts guns even more, I may veto it and then talk to the legislature. But I think right now, where the state of guns is in Oregon, it's not ideal, but it's not completely hostile like California. And so I will make sure it doesn't get that bad like California.
Yeah, or New York, or what that other state, Massachusetts. I can't even pronounce it.
Yes, right. So I'm going to make sure that Oregon does stay Second Amendment friendly. But I just want to make sure that we're doing it correctly and safely. I'm surprised you didn't catch on to my pun that I gave you in the email. How can we make Oregon safe again?
Yeah, I got that. So I guess the other thing is, would you mandate vaccines, or would you be at this point since we're where we're at now, not your answer might have been different 2 years from ago, but for now, would you mandate the vaccines, or would you say, if someone chooses not to get the vaccine and they die from getting COVID, that's their fault, not mine?
I will strongly push for everybody to get vaccinated. At this point, I don't think I'm going to mandate it. But if you do end up in the hospital because of you got COVID-19 and you were not vaccinated, you will be responsible for that medical bill. Because if you've been vaccinated, you might not have gotten. Now, if you were vaccinated and you still got COVID-19, then the state will pay for your medical bills.
I guess I got one counter for that. Just I do got to put this counter out to see.
By all means, yes.
Is so. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this so we don't get this. Don't have to like blur and
Oh, just say it.
Okay, so then I guess this is sort of gonna go into the abortion issue now. Again, but if you decide to have sex with someone and you get pregnant, then why should the state pay for your abortion? It was your choice to have unprotected sex.
Yes, because if you're low income, you can't afford an abortion, and so that is a benefit that the state adds.
Right.
I understand that we are more or less condoning or encouraging it, which isn't good. But at the end of the day, your body, your choice, and I don't care what the reason is. I am 100% pro-choice. I don't know where we'll disagree more on guns or abortion, because I'm 100%, and it is a woman's right, and if you can't pay for it, then the state will step in.
I guess my thing is, the other thing I've seen go around, and I think keeping on this vaccine topic, is something I've seen around go through the media lately, or I guess more so beginning of the pandemic when the vaccine was first started, was it should be a personal choice to get vaccinated, yet it like punched us in the face, people who were unvaccinated in the face again at the end with just comments that were completely contradictory to that first statement. Or actions being taken in Oregon that were contradictory to that first statement. And I guess like I said, my view, it's my body to decide what I want to put into my body, or what I want to do to my body medically. And this is again why I have that sort of pro-abortion type thing. Not that I'm pro-abortion. I guess pro-abortion is the wrong word for it, because like I said, I'm not morally and ethically.
Well, I mean, pro-choice, you are pro-abortion, let's not beat around the bush. But pro-choice is, it's nicer sounding, and it's not as derogatory or negative.
I think politically pro-choice on abortion, I guess, is how I phrase it better, because I'm not necessarily, it's hard to explain, because morally and ethically, if I were to create a world based off of my morals and ethics, abortion would be illegal. But my morals and ethics do not align with other people's moral and ethics, nor should I push someone to have those same morals and ethics that I have.
I guess the reason I'm so pro-choice is because for me, abortion is actually very personal, without getting ending this on a super morbid, depressing note. But living without arms is not easy, Zach. I've faced discrimination. There are a lot of things I can't do. I'm on a lot of the gay dating apps, and guys just don't give me a second chance, because they're like, well, you're a disabled invalid, I don't want anything to do with you. And so there are days I do wish I had been aborted, because I think there are some days where I experience way more pain than joy. And abortion is a sort of a mercy act. I understand, we shouldn't be encouraging people to decide who lives and who dies. But at the end of the day, though, for me, I think there have been some times where, had I been aborted, it might not have been a horrible idea. And so I do understand your concern that a lot of women are using abortion as, oh, I got knocked up, I don't want to carry it, and they're very irresponsible behavior. But if you do the abortion within like 6 to 8 weeks, at that point, it is a fetus, but it's unrecognizable as a human being. And so I don't really view it as murder per se. If you're doing like a 4 months or 5 months, that is when you start really, drawing the lines.
Right. I guess, I guess the last thing I was going to say, on abortion and for my side, because I know we were more on that vaccine side. I was just kind of using abortion as an example. But the other thing I want to say about abortion from my view is the reason have that part of the reason I have that more pro-choice view is there. So back when I was going through a bunch of neurology visits a while back, because they thought I may have muscular dystrophy. They still don't know what I have, but they're pretty sure it's not progressive, so it wouldn't be muscular dystrophy. They're thinking it might be a mild form of cerebral palsy.
Oh.
But the muscular dystrophy side, there's a study in, I can't remember what the place is called, Panama or something like that. There's a treatment there, or an experimental treatment there, where they can use some parts of the
fetus
or whatever it is,
or the aborted tissues, yes,
to regenerate some of the decrease, I guess, is some of the symptoms,
and I am
increase the mobility.
Yes, and I am for using aborted fetal tissue for scientific research. Yes.
Now, am I sort of against it if it's not something like that? Yeah, like you said, my stance on abortion is so confusing, even to me.
Oh, well, it really shouldn't be. You know, let the woman decide. Just like you and I can decide who we have sex with. Let a woman decide what she wants to do with, you know, the pregnancy. Again, I don't want to condone, you know, I got knocked up, I don't want it.
Right.
And a lot of women do use abortion as a plan B of sorts. And so what we want to do is educate women and make sure that they know about contraceptives, which Oregon covers. They know about protection. Obviously, you know, condoms definitely take away the joy, but, you know, they are there for a reason.
So, yeah, I guess so. That vaccine thing was, you know, I guess it was a lot more view it as, you know, I think my view is people should have their choice on whether they want to get it or not. But if they get it again, and they die, they can't, if they don't get it and they die, then they shouldn't, you know, other people shouldn't be responsible for, I guess. I kind of get where we're at, where, you know, if you get it and you go to the hospital. But then at the same time, what if I'm in the hospital for something that's completely other than COVID, but I just so happen to have tested positive for COVID while I was in the hospital?
Well, then it will be covered by OHB. But if you get COVID, you know, and you end up in hospital on life support and you were not vaccinated, why should taxpayers pay for you playing Russian roulette with your life?
Right. I get it. I mean, there's a lot of different things that, you know, you can go back and forth on, but I think we kind of are at a stalemate on that. So,
and then check your email, Zach. I sent you the graphic that I want to post on social media. I think you'll like it. If not, let me know.
And then something else that honestly I don't know much about, but probably a lot of people who I'm going to share the video with are going to be more pro on it. So I'm not even going to counter any points on this.
Oh, well, feel free to do if you want to.
Because I frankly don't know much about it, nor has it been a huge topic on my radar. The whole critical race theory thing. What's your thoughts on that?
It should be taught in colleges and not high schools.
And I guess my only question, do you think it should be optional or mandatory in college?
Well, I mean, it is a part of our history, so I would say mandatory.
Yeah, because I was like, then would you agree we should teach about, since we're kind of on that, do you agree we should teach about World War II and all the other wars that played an important makeup of our society as it is now?
Well, we already do that in our high schools.
I feel when I was in high school, a lot of it lacked. We didn't learn a ton about World War II and Civil War, but that also could be because of this, you know, other special ed classes and stuff that I was in at the time.
Right, and they shouldn't be discriminating on you because of your learning abilities, which I think is wrong. I remember, because I was homeschooled most of my life, and I did go to McKeesburg High School, and when I tested, I scored a 12th grade in every subject, but math, where I scored in 9th grade, and my parents claimed that I was at 7th grade level. So guess where they put me in all of my subjects?
I guess, you know, the other thing was looking at I don't feel even the stuff that I did learn, they don't teach it in depth enough about
Right, like
what actually happened. Let's talk about the Constitution specifically. Like let's learn about the Constitution and what the actual history is on it versus what the Constitution says.
Right. The problem that I don't like about my teachings in World War II is they focus all about the Holocaust, which it is important,
Which
but
is only part of it.
right. I mean, what a lot of people don't know is that Stalin killed more people than Hitler, and yet Stalin is celebrated in history, and he was way more villainous. But because Hitler decided to choose a single population, he gets all the bad rap. And again, what Hitler did was wrong, but he did not kill as many people as Stalin did.
Since we are kind of on the World War II, something else I was going to say about guns was the other thing is if I think we both know this, if Hitler were to have successfully taken over everywhere and we're still in reign today, or I guess maybe not, he'd probably be dead now. But if the Nazi propaganda was still taking place today and was still the Nazi party was still ruling, I guess is a good way to put it, I think we both know that both of us would probably be put in the gas chamber.
Probably. Did you ever see the Amazon show, The Man in the High Castle?
I'm actually watching those series right now.
Isn't
and
it
that's why I brought this up.
amazing? Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes.
So
you're in for a treat. Yes.
We both know that that's what would happen. Yeah. And let's say later on down the line, we both know there's also still true. I like to use the word true white supremacist because some of my beliefs I'm accused of being a white supremacist. By no means am I a white supremacist. I'm one of the most unracist people you will ever meet.
And the conversation I've had to do with you, you're very pragmatic. You kind of libertarian, right, but you're more a centrist, I would say.
I'm a right-leaning center libertarian, I guess is where I place on that political compass thing.
Yes. What gives you away is your stance on guns. That makes you very right.
And I guess what I was saying is if the I think they were called neo-Nazis now, if I'm correct. Because I'm very big in like the 3% or militia side of the right-leaning stuff, because I affiliate with a lot of those groups and have I've also sat down and had beers with a lot of groups, because my general view is you can't judge a group, whether that be a right-leaning group or a left-leaning group, until you sit down and have a beer with them and talk to them. Because groups get labeled as hate crimes by groups so easy, when if you sit down and have a beer with them, they're actually not as bad as you think. But I guess the idea was the true white supremacist is what I like to call them. So like the neo-Nazis and KKK and stuff like that, which I'm 100% against. If they were to somehow, which I would hope people are sane enough not to let this happen, but if they were to come in power and somehow rule the entire US for whether via election or some, whatever else we want to call it, somehow they just come in power, I guess. If I had my guns, I could defend it myself, I guess, better. And now we have a government that's controlled by Nazis for the best way to put it. I'm not even going to use the word neo-Nazis anymore, because
I wouldn't call it Nazis. We have a very fascist government because we have a revolving door between businesses and corporations and government officials, which is the very definition of fascism. And we definitely have got to get money out of politics and government. Yes.
Yeah. And I guess, like I said, the guns would essentially help myself and everyone else, I guess, for that matter, be able to protect our lives from being thrown in that gas chamber or whatever they're going to use to execute us in the future. And again, this is still a hypothetical situation in the future. which might happen, but I sure the heck hope it never does happen.
I don't think with all the media and social media, like
I don't think it'll happen.
if Hitler had come
Right.
to power in this era, the Holocaust would have never happened because people would have been sneaking out videos with their phones. Okay. I mean, the problem is most Germans knew what was going on and they just turned a blind eye. But if the rest of the world had known, I think history would have been very different. Of course, I find it hilarious. I don't know if you got to the part where Hitler has his hand is shaking. And so basically, he should be put down too, but they don't do it.
Yeah, I am. I'm at the part where he actually, I think, died a few episodes in the last.
Oh, okay. I'll just send you some of my works of art because I don't know if you're going to like this or not, but I was actually able to make the swastika using Trump's last name.
Really?
Yes. Here, check your email. Did you get my graphic? Here, I'll send it to you right now.
I'll have to look at this. I mean, because I did realize a lot of things, and here's my view with Trump. As much as he, I am looking at my.
Oh, it's okay. Yes. Hold on. Let me send it to you. It's
as
beautiful.
much as I look at Trump is there are a lot of things he did. There's things he did I disagree with. Did I vote for him this last election, that presidential election? Yes. Because frankly, I didn't see Biden. As much as I hate to say it, Biden's not fit to be in office.
And Trump is?
That I'm not saying that. But I had to pick between the two evils. Let's put it that way.
So did I, and I ended up going with Biden because I could not do another 4 years. And actually, it's funny if you mentioned that because my ex-boyfriend also voted for Trump, and that's why we're now ex-boyfriends, because I'm like, you do not get to vote for the devil and call yourself my boyfriend. No.
I guess my view was, he actually supposed. So I'd have to go through the exact what happened because it was, but I have seen media articles about it, but it's so suppressed by a lot of that media. But he did a lot for people, minorities, but it wasn't shown in the media. He was donating. So I do recall one of them off the top of my head. He donated all his checks that he was getting being president. So he wasn't making any money being president. And a lot of people call him racist. And
well, he was definitely the biggest racist we've ever had, and the biggest sexist. The fact that he had the audacity to go on TV and say grab him by the pussy, like that should have disqualified him from the get-go. And that just that shows me just how fake Christians are, because they have no respect for women's bodies at all. Okay, so I just sent you the Trump swastika and the other graphic I did. And then did you get the gun graphic?
Yeah, I think I saw two of them for sure. I'm looking for the other.
Well, I just sent them. But is it okay if I post the gun graphic? And what do you think of the gun graphic? And I did it all in Photoshop.
Okay, I see where you're there. Yeah, that actually looks good.
Oh, thank you. Yes. It's the only time I'll be able to put my campaign logo with guns.
Right. So I guess, he did a lot, but a lot of things were suppressed, but he also did a lot of that's kind of what I had to stop and think, because
because he didn't do shit for minorities.
And I still think about that. But I also think, what did he do that was good, but what did he do that was bad? Because I think there's a lot.
He gave massive tax cuts to the 1%, which is a complete no-no.
I mean, we also had gas down to like $2 a gallon almost.
Yes.
But we could argue whether that's via the president or via.
And I can also tell you the only reason he had the economy that we had was because he inherited a phenomenal economy from Obama. Why is it that a Democrat always hands a Republican a good economy, and then the Republican hands the new Democrat a horrible economy? And
I guess what I'm lost on is gas was still going down, and then I think it was the Keystone Pipeline, and they cut off oil mining and stuff.
And of course, the Ukraine war didn't help either.
Right. That played a role in it.
Yeah.
And something I've talked to some people about is it's not necessarily politician, it's policy.
Right, because the inflation we're seeing today is actually, it started with Obama because Obama spent money like a drunk sailor. Trump spent money like a drunk sailor. Biden spent money like an Alzheimer's drunk sailor. I mean,
Right.
his Build Back Better plan, which I agree with, $1 trillion. And then, of course, let's not forget all the stimulus money that we got sent during COVID-19.
I do think the stimulus money played a role in inflation as much as it helped
yeah.
temporarily. It played a role in
And
inflation.
I am the only Democrat, Zach, who is willing to give Donald Trump credit. We got more money for you and me out of Donald Trump than we got out of Biden and Obama combined.
They still need to pass, as much as a lot of Republicans disagree with this statement, and probably even a lot of the right-leaning stuff, is we still need to pass one more stimulus check to get people back up and on their feet, and then slowly start. And I know a lot of people are against increasing minimum wage because inevitably,
well, actually, I'm pushing
probably
for $15 an hour, and Zach, I'm pushing for a living wage of $25 an hour at all companies that report billion-dollar profit every quarter. If you're making that much money, you need to be paying your employees a lot more.
Right, and I agree. And if, like I said, for that one thing I said earlier about that one security company I worked for, that once I found out how much they were getting paid for me, I left. If they're making money that they can, that they should be able to pay their employees more.
Yes, and the fact is, the private economy has shown it won't do anything unless it is mandated by the government. I am a huge proponent of government intervention, which you probably are not, but that's what government is here for. It is here to tell the private economy when it misbehaves, no, you can do it. Like, I live in Portland Towers, and there's 20, 30 vacancies, and I was told by the manager they would rather have the units go vacant than rent them below market value. Now, that is criminal that we have all these vacancies, we have people needing housing. It's like, what the fuck?
Right. Yeah, and I was like, we do need to figure out how we can control inflation, and how we can, and how we can also allow people to have a living wage. And I think that's very a complex topic that, frankly, I don't even understand. So I'm not really
because it's complex and it's daunting doesn't mean we don't do it, because the politicians have been kicking the can down the road for too many decades, and rents are sky high, inflation is sky high. It's ridiculous. Healthcare is still sky high. We need somebody like me, who is a regular Oregonian citizen, who is sick and tired of it, who will go to the Salem and make them do something. I'll be the only governor, Zach, who you will never catch sitting on his hands doing nothing.
And I really hope you're not like Kate Brown.
Oh, hell no.
Thank you. Because so she was actually rated the worst governor in the US.
She has lower approval ratings than Biden.
And Biden's got some pretty low approval ratings.
He does, yeah.
He has the lowest, I think, in all the presidents. I think it was, or it's right about there.
No, I think Trump has him beat by a couple of points, but he's not too far.
I think he just got lower than Trump I think Trump is just above him by a couple points now.
Wow, well, that's what you call a trumped-up poll.
Right. See, my thing is, when it comes to representative, but also with guns, and something I haven't said about myself is, I've been in multiple situations where I've had to defend myself. Never had to shoot anyone, luckily, and I'm happy about that, because when you shoot someone, it comes with a lot of trauma and legal issues following as well. But
you defend yourself, though, you shouldn't have any legal issues. And what I want to do is make sure that people can exercise their Second Amendment right without fear of all the prosecution nightmares. Yeah.
I've had a gun pointed at my head.
Oh, wow. Well, I haven't had a gun put into my head. I've had another kind of gun put into my head, if you get my drift, but not the gun you're thinking.
and that guy was arrested but was not prosecuted.
Oh wow.
They decided there wasn't a case. All of the people I was with, we all were armed, but all our guns were slung over. Safety actions, all responsible outside of the one part we probably disagree with a little bit on the open carry side. He comes out of his house, made some racist comments, pointed a gun at her head. He gets arrested that night, I believe it was, and about 2 days before I was set to testify at his trial, the DA gives me a call and says they're dropping charges. And I disagree with that, simply for the aspect of you can't go and point a gun at someone's head for no reason and expect to have your charges dropped.
Right, but he didn't actually pull the trigger. I'm not excusing what he did, but he didn't pull the trigger.
Right.
He abused the weapon, but he didn't kill anybody. So they should at least.
Right. So it shouldn't. And he was only being charged with, I think, menacing is what it was, rather than my other situation where I had my sidearm on my hip and I'm sitting in a truck. And I've had trouble with this business. We won't go. I'm not going to go and say the name or anything because I'm already getting enough hate mail regarding it as it was. I've been threatened. I've had some pretty bad comments made about me over it. But anyways, they had a really controversial political sign, and a lot of people made phone calls to him under *67, and they ended up thinking it was all me and the other person that was in the vehicle at the time. We ended up having to park the truck so my friend could take a phone call. Their business was right by Saturday Market in Eugene. So we parked, my friend was going to take a phone call. We were considering walking around Saturday Market after he was done off the phone. We're sitting there in the car on the phone. We weren't even there for 5 minutes. I know that because I turned a YouTube video on as soon as we sat down, and it wasn't even 3 minutes into the YouTube video.
No. Wow.
And we see this guy walking out of the business. We're not even on their property, keep in mind. Walking or never were on their property at all that day or the day following or for a few weeks at least. I went up and confronted him once about some controversial things they said over the phone. Very, very controversial. I was really respectful about it too. But anyways, besides the point. He comes out of the store really aggressively with a baseball bat, like he's going to beat the shit out of us. He was going to destroy the car. I was honestly scared for my life at this point already. There were 3 of us in the car. The female in the back seat of the car looks back and says something about the guy coming out here with a baseball bat. I turn around and see him charging us with a baseball bat.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, fuck this. And I look at the person who's the driver, I'm like, fucking drive. And I pull my gun off my hip and put it around in the chamber and set it in my lap. Because I don't want to brandish my weapon yet. I don't want to, cause any issues. I don't want to escalate this. If we drive off and he doesn't do anything, then I'm good. I have no reason to use it if I'm able to drive off. If we're able to drive off. I wasn't driving. But anyway, so my sidearm's sitting in my lap at this point, and we get stopped at a red light, not even a block away. And he continues to chase us almost a block away from the business he came out of with the baseball bat. And he comes up to our window and starts threatening us and being aggressive with the baseball bat and saying he wants to break our property and hurt us. And we have this entire second half on film.
Oh.
Which actually is leading to a very massive prosecution on what he did. Well, he's still doing this and gets right up in our face. Finally, my friend, who, get this is going to be pretty funny. And if that guy sees this video, he's going to think he's an idiot. Had a BB gun, a replica BB gun. It looks identical to a real gun. pulls it off his hip and puts it in his face and says, "Back the F up, I'm scared for my life." Everybody in that car is scared for their life. I was scared for my life. The female in the back was scared for her life. And the guy in the driver's seat was scared for his life. He backs up and we're able to drive off. Because the red light just lifted at that point. And there's no traffic, so we were able to get through at that point. Following that, there were some other incidents that happened that I in no way, shape, or form was involved in that happened that ended up getting a lot of media attention with that business. Well, following that incident, which I'm not even gonna go into that incident because it's so nitpicky and gritty and it's a nightmare to go through. But following that incident, the individual was live streaming on YouTube when this happened, and it ended up going viral.
Oh, wow.
They ended up pulling their video down. Well, my video from that business of confronting them when they made some controversial statements over the phone, what went viral following that because they pulled their video down and that generically showed up. And I ended up getting 6,000 views on that video in 24 hours.
And then did you push your homemade AK-47 business?
Nah, I don't sell them.
Oh,
so I won't sell my gun. I won't sell as much as I'd love to sell my ARs. Let's put it that way. I want to go get my FFL and the manufacturer, and I want to go work and I actually want to go work for a firearms manufacturer more than I want to work security.
But when you make your AK-47s, so how do you put the serial number? Like, do you register
so
somewhere?
The first one I purchased, I'm not. You mill it out, and despite what a lot of people think, and I know a lot of people think this, especially after the whole Joe Biden ghost gun thing at the White House recently.
Yes.
Milling out a firearm, if you don't know what you're doing, putting together and milling out a firearm is not a quick task. It's building my AR, my first AR, and milling it out, which right now, as I said, we're probably already in disagreements about this, is it doesn't have a serial number on it, and it's not legally required to have a serial number on it.
I don't know how. I mean, that's the ghost.
It is very confusing, but I'll go into something in a minute once I get done explaining this. You have to mill out the entire thing. The milling machines and the stuff you need to mill it out cost upwards of $200 to $300. Just that milling machine.
And you have that, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I ended up getting rid of it a while back because I don't mill them out anymore.
Well, you should have at least sold it, made some money.
I ended up giving it to a friend because I was thinking about milling one out later. And I'm like, hey, here's this. I don't have anywhere to keep it at my apartment. So, and he had a shop. I'm like, let's just put it at your shop and then I'll go over there if I need to mill something out. Made it easier so I had the place to do it, but not the, and still on the machine. Anyways, I ended up giving him the machine later on. So I hadn't seen the machine lately. I won't mill firearms out anymore. I don't have the interest in doing that.
I mean, I'm not opposed to doing it, but you do need to get a serial number on all of the guns.
Right. Federal government actually just released a rule, which I do think may fall under unconstitutional. I don't know. I guess it's going to depend if the Supreme Court picks it up. And I don't necessarily think it's wrong. I think the rule is kind of bogus. I don't like the rule. I don't think it should be a rule. But if it was gone and passed correctly, I might be a little more willing to accept it rather than having a federal law enforcement agency make a rule that changes the definition of something that's already been written in law. It should have.
But requiring a serial number isn't changing the definition, just simply making sure
that's
not tracked.
That's not what changed, though. What ended up changing, that was part of the rule. So the rule was what defines a firearm. And an 80% lower receiver when you purchase that is not considered a firearm because it is not readily available to shoot. It like I said, it takes a lot of time and money, and frankly, a lot of criminals don't want the amount of ghost guns recovered at crimes is very, or even used in crimes, is very minimal outside of the ones which the federal government now can also has considered filed off serial numbers ghost guns, which I guess they kind of are at that point.
Yeah.
But let's put it, it's more 80% lowers is what they're trying to ban, and not even the filed off serial numbers, which is already a felony to do. But the 80% lowers, you get, it's essentially, I wish I had one that was still an 80 that I could show you, but it's essentially a block of metal. You have to mill everything out for it to even be functionable, and you have to get all these pieces put in. You could mess up on this, and it takes a couple hours. It takes an hour and a half to mill it out, and that's if you know what you're doing. And then it could take anywhere between 30 minutes to 3 hours to put the gun together. The lower receiver, and then the upper receiver is not classified as a firearm because an upper receiver, it's super weird. The definitions to these frankly don't make sense, and so I kind of see why they changed it, but they also changed it in a completely wrong way. But they changed the definition that an 80% is now considered a firearm, which for me, I don't understand how an 80%, I still don't understand how that would be considered a firearm, because
I mean, is it functioning at 80%?
Nope, not functioning. I would understand a little bit more if they passed some rule. Now, I'd still be against this rule, but I'd understand a little more if they passed a rule that was like, okay, you need to serialize it once it's done, but you can buy it without a serial number. I guess it's sort of weird. I guess they essentially made it so an 80% lower has to be serialized now, and you have to go through the normal background checks, which isn't going to stop people from making ghost guns or 80% lowers, I guess, or guns without serial numbers. Because I could walk into a hardware store, buy some metal piping, and build a 12-gauge shotgun at home without much issue. I mean, or I could buy a 3D printer, get the files from someone, put the files in, and build the 80% lowers that way.
Well, actually, there are already websites that are showing the files and exactly how to do that. And Biden has run into a lot of trouble trying to take them down because they're protecting
the First Amendment stuff.
Yes.
And it's too easy to produce an 80% gun. And I'm going to use 80% because I really don't like the term ghost gun, because I feel like it encompasses two different things. One that still is completely legal for, I think, the next 100 and something days, and one that is 100% a felony. Because if I took my AR right now that has a serial number on it, because one of them I built that was already milled out, I'll just buy the milled out lowers now that are serializing, go through the back of this, because why not? The only thing an 80% is good for is not showing up to law enforcement. So I mean, frankly, I don't see a point in needing an 80%. Does that mean I'm against people building out a gun from an 80% without having to go to the background check? It's a little different, but for me, the cause vs benefit for me isn't worth it.
And for me as governor, all these new federal rules, they're completely over my head. I have nothing to do. And obviously, if I was ever introduced a bill that would try to codify that state law, I would seriously look at it. But again, if it doesn't really have a intuitive purpose, why would we pass it? Because that just makes no sense. Like, if it's not functional at 80%, then why 80%? It's very arbitrary.
The other thing goes on another rule the ATF is trying to make now that I want to hear your opinion on, because I think both myself and you and can kind of see where this is coming from. And I'll have to kind of give you the history behind the piece that they're trying to essentially ban. I guess not ban it. They're trying to turn into an SBR now, which requires a $200 tax stamp, yada, yada, yada. A bunch of other loopholes you have to jump through, a year-long wait, and all sorts of other stuff.
Right. Like I said, all those are very cumbersome.
Right.
It don't really serve anybody. So yeah, so if it's pointless, I definitely want to get rid of it, because again, I don't want to stop people from bearing arms. I just want to make sure that they're of
And
legal and sound mind to bear the
you
arm.
probably wouldn't. You might be able to prevent it from passing in Oregon or put some things in place maybe, but that's hit or miss. But what I was talking about was the SB tactical braces, pistol braces for an AR pistol. They were originally designed for disabled veterans.
You mean veterans with physical disabilities?
Yes, I guess there's a lot of different ways you put it, but yes.
Well, disabled is very negative, and it's highlighting what you can't do, and I don't want to do that. So
Okay, that's a better way to put it.
somebody with a physical challenge isn't disabled, but if you just say a disabled veteran, it basically makes it out like they can't do it. So I'm not trying
You have a
to
better way to
split
phrase it.
hairs here,
Yeah,
but I do not.
I
consider
agree with you
myself-
on that.
I don't consider myself disabled.
Right.
I am what you call handy capable, even though I can't ever give
Right.
you a hand.
I like that word. I'd rather people like call with my issues say that too. So the pistol braces were designed to assist veterans that didn't have an arm, only had one arm.
Or like with me with no arms.
Right.
Could I use it?
And even you, it might even benefit. Assume it. I mean, based on that one Yen video I saw, I mean, if you were able to, I don't know if you are able to own a firearm. I'm not,
I've never fired a weapon, but I don't know why I couldn't. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know how I would counter the kickback. There is that.
So that's the other reason I'm very much pro AR platform. AK, I don't know much about AK, so I don't speak on the whole AK side. But the AR platform, the 223 has very, very low recoil, which is another reason I use it for hunting. Is it has low recoil and I can control it better even with one hand. Or I mean, in your case, 1 foot, even assuming you can get the foot and the trigger and everything.
Oh, I don't know why I can. My toes aren't that fat.
I don't know how much, how.
Maybe what I have to do is visit you in Eugene, and we can do some target practice.
Yeah, I don't drive. We'd have to find someone to drive, but.
Well, I mean, I can take the Amtrak, and then is there public transportation in Eugene?
I don't. We would have to. I'd have to find someone who drove, because I don't shoot at ranges very often. If you were to come up and we were to shoot like pistols or something, just regular pistols, I'd probably just go to Northwest Arsenal. It's a range in town.
I mean, worst case scenario, we can just get an Uber, and then if I come there as governor, we'll have my own motorcade to give us transportation.
Right. Yeah. So
So don't be offended if they want to inspect to see what kind of heat you're packing, since you are pro-gun.
Well, yeah. But so the AR pistol brace is what a lot of people hear on by now, and when you hear about it, was designed so it has a strap on it that wraps around the person's arm. So the veterans can still use a platform they're used to using, or a similar, I guess I'm going to use similar platform, because like I said, the difference between AR and the fully auto ones or burst fires that the military use is the AR only does semi, which shoots 1 for the trigger. It allows them to function that AR with 1 hand, or the long gun with 1 hand, and it's a smaller barrel, so it's not quite as heavy. And that was kind of the design of it. Well, the ATF is trying to classify that as an SBR now, which now that doesn't, although it might make your gun look slightly like an SBR, and the ATF has already ruled it not an SBR, but now they're trying to go change their ruling again to it be an SBR, which is something the ATF is famous for, is flip-flopping on all their rules. And
I already have a solution to challenge that We can challenge that on ADA grounds.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking. It's even if we're just pushing it for disabilities of some sort, as much as I'm
Well,
against
but
it.
that's what it was intended for.
Right. It's what it was intended for, but everybody can purchase it.
Well, I
And
mean,
that's kind of where it.
I would be with the ATF on limiting who can purchase it. Like, if you don't have a physical challenge, why do you need it?
Right. And a lot of people use them because, there's a lot of different things. It's not that.
Well, why do you use them?
I'll use it for one-handed shooting. If I'm shooting with one hand.
I mean, can you shoot with one hand without using it?
It's a lot. So it's a lot, very, very difficult too, because the AR pistols are already fairly heavy. So being able to hold that up with one hand and everything, heck, I can even fire my rifle with AR rifle with one hand's tricky.
I think what the ATF is trying to do is trying to make it less easy to fire a gun, which is kind of getting petty, but I can see the rationale. So as long as
as
long as they don't rule out those with physical challenges. Now, if they do rule out everybody, then yes, that would be an ADA violation. And that's why I sued Fred Meyer on the wrong, because you usually can't sue for wrongful termination. But if it's a federal violation like the ADA, then you have ground.
Right. Yeah, and it definitely, like I said, they seem to flip-flop a lot of their rules, and some of them sort of make sense and some of them don't make sense at all.
Well, I mean, it's the ATF, so yes.
Right.
But again, that's a federal agency that is way over the governor's prerogative.
Right, unless you were to go really extreme 2A and do a bunch of weird things.
I mean, I could actually dispute it with Biden directly as governor and say this is a violation of the ADA. Because that's the thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to really stand up for those with physical and mental challenges like we've never seen before, because we have a few governors with physical challenges, but all of them right now are Republican and they're horrible, like Greg Abbott. I mean, he is a disgrace to the disability race, no pun intended. He's actually blocked a lot of bills that would make people in wheelchairs have easier access. And he's in a wheelchair himself. I don't understand it. Like, why would you make access more difficult? Makes no sense.
Right. I'm trying to think if there was anything else to cover that I had.
Well, that's why they call it an encore. So we're obviously going to have to come back for a second helping and a third helping and a fourth helping. And then don't forget about the gubernatorial helping if I win the primary.
Right.
So
yeah, I think we covered.
Are you watching the election results on May 17?
I'm going to try to.
What do you mean you're going to try to? No, don't try, just do.
It all depends. I work graveyard, so it's a little tricky for me to do anything. So.
So shouldn't you be sleeping right now?
Nah, I normally wake up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for the heck of it.
Okay. I don't want to be accused of you not being 100% at your tip-top shape because you had to banter with a Democrat you couldn't even vote for.
Yeah, no, I got plenty of sleep today. I went to bed at about 7 and slept until 3.
So have you had success with reaching out to the other Democratic candidates?
I have not reached out. I just started deciding I was going to reach out. I was actually scrolling through. I was reading through that pamphlet thing that they sent in the mail. I'm like, I want to reach out to this person.
So what drew you to my profile?
Huh?
Well, what drew you to my?
I think the big thing was OHP, which drew me to your profile, because that's something that I haven't seen other candidates advertise for. And I wanted to know further on your stance on that and your stance on some of the other rights.
I think more Democrats would be pushing OHP for all. And I'm the only Democrat, Zach, that's pushing to actually lower and cap rents. I'm not kidding when I tell you, within my first 100 days, somebody like you who's paying rent, you'll be receiving $100 rebate because I want to return the money back to you.
Right.
So do you rent or do you own?
I rent.
And do you have roommates?
I have one roommate.
Oh, okay, but I'm pretty sure you're probably paying over $1,000 in rent.
Seven. I'm paying actually really cheap for I found one of the cheaper places to rent. It's a nicer place, but it's cheaper.
I mean, it looks nice where you are.
It's 752, but it's gone up to 788.
And for how many bedrooms?
I get one of the, so it's essentially split. It's ran, the apartment complex is ran very similar to the college dormitory type thing, you know, where you're only responsible for your half.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
so if
actually
the
pretty
other person
reasonable.
decides not to pay their rent, they're the only one getting evicted. I'm not.
Ah, because I'm paying $1,200 for my studio in downtown Portland. And it's only 350 square feet.
Yeah, and I would love to be able to afford a studio apartment because as much as roommates are okay, I hate living with roommates.
Oh, believe you me. Why do you think I just live with me and my two feline Valentines?
Yeah, I live with too many animals. I got two birds sitting behind me.
Oh, do you have any cats or dogs?
I have a cat, I have a bearded dragon, and I have two fish.
Oh, we're definitely have to do some more FaceTiming next time. Because actually my one cat, he is now 19 going on 20.
Impressive. Don't they only normally live to like 16?
Well, but this cat is a special cat. He's eaten raw food most of his life. And he used the toilet for 4 years.
Impressive.
Yeah, I'll just send you my YouTube link. I'm surprised you haven't watched all of my YouTube videos because I have quite a few.
I don't think I've seen your link. I've seen a video. I don't think I've seen your YouTube link.
Well, I'll send you the link and then click on my name. Please be sure to subscribe. And then when you're bored and on the verge of suicide, watch my videos and you'll be inspired, aspired, and you'll be like, wow, am I sure this guy has no arms?
Awesome.
And then I'll have to figure out how to send you the link because since this is not going on 2 hours, I don't know how big the file is going to be, so I may have to split it.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good if you gotta split it.
I mean, I think it's important that that we should have more voter dialogues like you and me, so people can see, we may not agree, but we were civil, we were kind. I still feel horrible that I can't shake your hand, but again, it is a virtual, interview of sorts.
Right, and I know I'm running for the PCP position for Republican in Lane County simply because Libertarian doesn't have that option.
Ah,
So I can get semi-involved in it, but I also want to, as much as I don't really have as much power being in that position to do what I want to be able to bring both the Republicans and Democrats and find, and try to keep us instead of, something that I think, you get a Democrat president or governor in and they do all this stuff. And then as soon as a Republican comes in, then they undo everything.
Oh,
and
believe
the
you
Democrat
me,
comes
that.
back and
Believe
they undo
me.
everything the Republican does. And it turns into just a freaking shit show.
But believe you me, I will definitely be undoing a lot of the stuff Kate Brown did. The mask mandates, I'm repealing. All of her COVID-19 stuff, I'm repealing it all.
Yeah, the mask mandates have gone.
I don't know why she hasn't lifted the mask mandate. I mean, a federal court.
The medical one's still in play. And honestly, at this point, if people are dying from COVID and the vast majority of Oregon is already vaccinated, if people are still dying from COVID,
but people still are dying from COVID.
I don't think there's much more we can do. We just got to cut our loss. In my opinion, as much as this is going to sound cruel, we just need to cut our loss. And if people die, people die.
I mean, people are going to die. Even those who have been vaccinated are dying. But again, you have a greater number of unvaccinated people dying than you have vaccinated people dying. And the thing is, the vaccines are offered for free. So, I mean, it can't hurt to be vaccinated. But obviously, no, I want to respect those who have medical conditions that prevent them because they have been villainized, and I don't think that's right.
Right. I think people with medical conditions with everything during this entire pandemic have been villainized. And that's that's the other thing that when I saw some of the stuff on the, that paper thing I was going through, that has got me to now I am very much, wanted to reach out and be like, well, let's see what, because seeing that the whole disability rights advocate or and everything. I wanted to know more about what your stances on were things because, like I said, I don't always like voting Republican because
But
not
you
all.
should have switched parties so you could have voted for me, Zach.
I don't know. I'm
The,
not.
the
Well, I'll
team
be
you're voting
honest.
for, the team you're voting for, it does not care about those with physical and
I don't.
mental challenges. The Republican Party has not. I mean, granted, the ADA was signed by George H.W. Bush, one of the few instances where the Republican Party was on the correct side of history. But for the most part, Republicans, they don't give a damn about people like you and me.
I don't think a lot of people do, even on some of the Democrats.
Oh, well, I mean, they're just as bad. Yes.
So, I mean, that's kind of why I need to step back and, and sometimes I like to step back and look, well, what's the other side's point of view? I actually reached out to one Republican recently, and I had a 2A event to protest the ATF rule with the 80% and the pistol braces, primarily the pistol braces, even though that one hasn't been finalized in the rule yet.
Oh, it'll be finalized.
It probably will, but to go protest that. So I threw an event outside the ATF building on public property because you can't carry on, federal property. To be like, okay, you can't be doing this to people type thing without any public, without putting on a ballot of some sort at the very least.
Well, they should though. I think they are mandated to have public comment reviews. They did not.
They did, and they're not listening to public comment reviews. We put
the ATF never does. Yes.
Right. No, it's all a lot of politics is all political theater. And that's one of the
I think you can definitely get a lot of traction, especially if you approach the brace as an ADA issue, because people are more receptive if they know it's helping those who are disadvantaged. Right. It's all how you frame your argument.
And I think a lot of people have made that public comment on that.
And if we have a video of me using it and we post it on YouTube, because I definitely do need another gun video on my YouTube. It's been too long since the right to bear arms was posted.
Right. And so, yeah, like you said, we really, I mean, we were out there and I had a Republican politician show up wanting to support it. Well, if a politician is going to support something, we need politicians who are going to stand up and support something, regardless if they're the only ones standing, if they're going to do something.
And if they're a Republican, you would think they would be all about pro Second Amendment.
They showed up, realized there were only 5 of us there, and walked off.
Well, that's
that. I was going to vote for them too. I think it was a senator or something position. I was going to vote for them too, until that happened. Luckily, I didn't turn my ballot in yet, and I didn't vote for them. They lost my vote by doing that.
And you can always change your vote, if you haven't turned it in yet.
Yeah, I'm just about to turn it in here on my way out to work. So
okay, well, you know what you should do? Try to vote for me anyways and see if they'll count it. It can't hurt.
Yeah, I already sealed up my ballot.
Well, you could always unseal it. I mean, didn't you hear what Trump was saying? People were double voting in the 2020 election. Well, let's see if it actually works.
I would like to know. Now, supposedly, though, which I am interested in, I do think with so many people thinking this is probably the last thing we should talk about because then I got to get ready for work.
And I got to get ready for a night of binge watching unauthorized living on Netflix. I have to send you my video. I have a 65-inch TV, and because my apartment is so small, the TV literally makes a wall partition.
That would be cool.
But go ahead, me before I sidetrack you. Yeah. You know us politicians, we always hijack the conversation.
Right, I think we both hijack the conversation back and forth. They're just kind of funny because I'm very, very big. I'm very active in politics, more so the Second Amendment side of things. But I also want a lot of, reform and a lot of different things that are going on. And
right, but also it doesn't help that you're living in Oregon, which by default is anti-Second Amendment.
Right.
I mean, I probably lost a lot of Democratic votes because of my friendly attitude towards the Second Amendment.
Yeah, and I really think we need to make Oregon more friendly to the Second Amendment.
Right. We need to make Oregon safe again.
Right. And here's the I guess what I'll change what the last thing I was gonna say is something we need to look at when we're talking about protecting people or making it safe again, I guess. And of course, Oregon's not safe. I've watched it go downhill Eugene go downhill the past 5 years I've lived here. That I've lived here. How do we make it more safe when it comes to guns? Is that by decreasing them or increasing them? Because the Democrat side of things have traditionally wanted to decrease gun rights, and the Republican side has wanted to increase them. And I see the idea behind both of them. The Republican side agrees if we increase the ability for people to own and carry guns in public, then we can prevent those mass shootings because there's going to be more people who carry guns.
There have actually been shootings where people did have guns and they did not act at all.
Correct. But if everybody, let's just hypothetical situation that everybody in a theater of 100 people carried a gun, which never is going to happen. It's just not going to happen. But or say 75% of people in the theater.
I think you're lucky if you get 10%. Let's be realistic.
We'll get a majority of them in there. If we had to cap them out in there, and we had someone go in there to shoot them, one of those 10% is very much likely to stand up and do something.
Yes, and that's why I'm against school boards prohibiting guns on school property, because we need the extra protection.
Yeah, and I also look, we brought that Capitol thing up, and I have a level of disagreement on it. But like I said, because why are we restricting CHL holders? At least as much it is, if as much as I'm in a very much no compromise position, I'm like with Second Amendment a lot. I like looking at trying to say, well, if let's just say there's no way we're going to prevent it and we have to work together, this is what should happen. Something I think we might be able to agree on is no, and I'm not saying I guess something we probably could the best compromise you'd get from me, if I'm going to compromise at all, would be, okay, no firearms in the Capitol, but if you have your CHL, you can have them outside of it. So then we still have, then people who are wanting to advocate for the Second Amendment on the state level still have the opportunity to show up and advocate on that side and be seen in Salem. Because right now, people who are Second Amendment advocates, we've stopped throwing rallies in Salem because we can't advocate anymore there.
But you can advocate without your gun. I don't know why you insist on bringing something. You're already safe in Salem. It's just a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, and I have mixed feelings.
Now, if you guys are doing a protest, I am for allowing you to having your guns, but you are going to be surrounded by state troopers.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem. And let's be clear, I don't have a problem if state troopers want to bring the riot control squad and sit down on the street and watch us.
Right. So
all the power to them.
Right. So if you're going to be using guns as part of a protest, then I would allow that. But just to carry guns, concealed on state, I don't know why you need that.
Right. So and that's my big thing. A lot of the advocacy on the side of it is when things are coming down to stripping away the Second Amendment rights, if we can get it as a Second Amendment advocate and a lot of the right-leaning side being Second Amendment advocates, if we can get out on and be seen with these firearms and be showing, hey, there's a lot more of us than you think who have them. If you try to take these away, it's going to be a nightmare for both of us.
Well, I mean, if you want, I can publish a list of all the CHL people in Oregon as governor. If that's
I definitely don't want that.
Okay, but you just said something completely opposite. You want people to see how many of you all have guns, so you can't have it both ways.
Yes, but people also should have the choice if they want to be there or don't want to be seen with them.
Yes, but my thing is on state capital property, you should not have a gun. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. Now, if it's part of a protest, I'm open to compromise there. But in general, I don't know why you need to have a concealed weapon on state property.
Yeah. And I know, like, the one thing I said in the email was security guards and police officers don't really have a responsibility to
Right. And as
protect
governor,
people.
I will be changing that because that is absolute asinine. What is the point of you being a security if you're not going to give any security? That's stupid.
Right. All we technically are, and now I'm one of those people who rides company handbook to the T.
Oh.
Like, I will, if I'm allowed to do something, I'm going to do it as long as I feel safe doing it.
And I think if we were to actually make you first responders or add you as a part-time police, that would definitely elevate your responsibilities.
Right. And, I know a lot of people wanted police reform. And I know, since we're kind of, like I said, I really got to wrap this up.
You are definitely speaking to somebody who wants, I am not a cab. I do believe in our police, but we need major reform.
Right. And I know a lot of people I've talked to, even on the Republican side, look at, we need some level of police reform, whether that is essentially privatizing the police sector.
Oh, no, I'm completely.
It would be really complicated, because if we privatize it similar to we privatize security officers, we have more responsibility being held on the people in charge.
And obviously the privatization of security companies hasn't worked. That there's proof why you cannot privatize police. And then anything, I want to unprivatize security companies and make them public so they have to be accountable.
One other thing, since I know this is going to be everywhere, and I think people should be aware of this since we're on the police topic. So there was, in one of the incidents I brought up earlier in Eugene, an individual sent an email to the police chief of Eugene, Chris, I believe his name was Skinner. His response to that email was to send unsolicited pornography to the individual.
Right, that was very inappropriate, especially
very inappropriate.
Government property, government resources, and he should be prosecuted. Yes.
Yeah, and it wasn't him; it was just general pornography. And because I had the email actually forwarded to me, and when I saw it, I was like thinking he sent it to the wrong person, and then I looked at it again later. I'm like, oh crap, he did send this to the wrong person. This is just
now, if he sent him gay porn, I can forgive him.
No, it was really bad straight porn.
Well, straight porn is bad. I agree with you. I'm not gonna apologize for being gay all day and
no, and I'm not either.
Exactly. If more people were gay, you would not have so many unwanted pregnancies.
Okay, well, we probably should cap this out because I really gotta get ready for work. So.
All right, Zach. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you. I'll shake your hand virtually with my foot, and definitely let's stay in touch. And I have a feeling you and I are gonna be good friends going forward.
Awesome. Yeah, let's try to.
No. Let's stop doing all this trying.
We should get another one of these Zoom meetings going forward, regardless if you get elected or not.
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
Keep trying to try to figure out maybe.
No, I
even
don't.
If it's where the right and the left can work together and accomplish things, regardless if
right. Unlike you, no offense, I don't try. I do.
I think okay, then let's do that and try to.
No trying. You are addicted to the C word. Oh my goodness.
Let's. Oh my God, man, it's so hard to try.
I told you, Zach, I am what you call a master debater.
Yeah, I've ended some 2A debates in like 3 posts. I guess I'll tell you one more story before we get off. I mean,
yeah, it's gonna be really dark where you are right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't even turn my light on. I should have.
Well, I mean, I don't think we were expecting to be on beyond 40 minutes, but we have such a good chemistry. Why end something if it doesn't have to be ended?
Right. Yeah, I definitely gotta get off here by 9, but
Mhm.
we've already been on here almost 3 hours. I think.
Exactly. I had a feeling you're going to entrap me.
We
And you
could
didn't
sit
even use
here.
any weapons in the process. I'm impressed.
Yeah, we can see. So I ended a gun debate on a. So all my dating app says I'm interested in guns because I am interested in guns and I don't want to
Oh,
date
so you like
someone.
on Grinder and Sniffies and
Yeah,
all that.
Tinder and all that other stuff. I don't want people showing, going to a date and not, and not knowing that I have guns, and then, my Glock 19 that's on the concealed on me shows, and then it turns into a
Well,
huge.
I mean, don't you already advertise how much heat you're packing? So they should know you're already armed to the hilt.
In my apartment, you'd probably see because
No.
my
I mean,
building.
on the gay apps, like, don't you tell them, like how many inches, so they know how much heat you're packing. So you're
I
armed to
tell
the
them that
hilt.
I've told people that I'm a gun nut. It's the best way to put it, and I don't have any problem saying that.
Mm.
But like I said, I don't want, and I don't like, but I also don't necessarily advertise everything I own because
Mm.
some things
Because you want to surprise them when they get into your bedroom.
right have more to talk about, and also I don't want all the intruders, people watching this video who decide they hate me and figure out where I live, to come kick in my door and not have a surprise for them waiting on the other side.
Why, I mean, a killer surprise is a killer surprise.
Right. Yeah, and normally I keep my favorite one that I keep in my apartment, because I don't like to kill people. Let me make that clear. I keep a shotgun under my bed with non-lethal rounds in it.
Well, good to know that I'll be well protected once I visit you.
I I don't ever want to have to kill someone, and that, and when people hear, to gun nut and to a advocate, it always goes to, oh, this person's crazy and wants to go and kill people.
I've actually spoken with people who are dying to shoot somebody and have them die. It's crazy. Like, it's one thing to defend yourself, but to actually look forward to it, like, really? Like,
right. Yeah, no, and it's, you shoot, and I think just something that everybody should know is, if you shoot someone, it's a $500,000 bond, so I hope you have insurance that covers that. I do, at least.
but why is it $500,000 bond? I mean, you should just have in defense.
That's the other thing. And this is according to one of the big, so this is according to U.S. Concealed Carry Association, which I have an insurance through, is we shouldn't let people just go around killing people and claiming self-defense necessarily. They should have a fair trial, because it was something along those lines. Because if we let people just go willy-nilly kill someone, why? Is that not just going to turn into me saying, oh, I'm mad at you, so I'm going to kill you and claim?
Well,
and
like
then
that one guy, what was his name? He was acquitted, but he crossed state lines. He was a minor.
Actually,
and he caused the whole thing.
So
and then
I actually know that story and watched a lot of trial. I don't know how much of the trial did you watch any of the trial?
No.
Okay, so I'll run through this real quick because I have time, because I know so many people.
Kyle Ritter, that's his name. Yes.
Yeah, so many people did not watch the Kyle Rittenhouse trial.
Mm-hmm.
And
I followed the press analysis.
Yes.
He did instigate all of it.
So it does appear that way. So actually, there was, watching the trial and everything that happened, the press covered it completely wrong.
What is
and it shows how much misinformation is in the press. But if you watch the actual trial, so he never crossed state lines with a firearm. His dad, I believe it was his dad, lived in Kenosha, and he worked in Kenosha. His firearm was already in Kenosha and stayed in Kenosha the entire time, even prior to him going up there.
But didn't he, though, cross state lines to get there? So he was a resident of Kenosha.
He was working in Kenosha that day.
Right, but he didn't
Worked
live
in Kenosha, and I believe he was staying with his dad that day. I can't recall if he was staying with
But he didn't live in Kenosha, though.
his father. I believe it was his father lived in Kenosha.
Right, but he himself, though, did not live in Kenosha. He lived in Kansas, right?
Right, but I guess regardless, he never
He did
crossed
cross state line. Maybe not that
he
night.
crossed state lines. He never crossed. So, and I guess with the media, I guess something else is. So he crossed state lines, but he never crossed state lines with a firearm. His firearm was already in. His firearm was there. He was legally in possession of it, and I believe it was due to some really, really weird, very gray line law that it was dropped. But then you'd have to watch all the footage and everything. But if you go back and look up some of the court trials and watch that, it would make a lot more sense.
I mean, he was acquitted, so obviously the jury must have believed the story.
There was, as much as I'm like, don't go shoot up people. Like, let's just be clear. I'm not saying
that's what Kyle did, though.
So it was self-defense if you watch the footage.
But he caused the situation that put himself in that dangerous situation where he had to defend himself.
But I mean, I guess here's the other thing is if you're doing security for anyone, and I guess this is a little different because he technically wasn't. I don't know what the laws in Wisconsin are. I do know the laws in Oregon. Because the law in Oregon, and it's not a very well-known one, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to try to tell me I'm wrong on this, but there is a law in Oregon that says I could provide private security without a license as long as I am not being paid.
Right, but he was not providing security. He said he was, but he wasn't, though.
Right, and I'd go through the trial, but I guess the Oregon side of it is. So I guess one other story I wanted to run through about the 30-round mags and the AR thing, and I guess I keep saying one more story a lot now.
I know you said that an hour ago.
So
you're just like a Republican, always going back on your word. But I like it though.
Okay, so the other thing, with the ARs and the 30-round mags that I want to bring up is, and something that I've really seen firsthand, because one of my situations I've been in, I was out in the middle of the boondocks out in Beatty, Oregon. I don't know if you know where that is.
I do not know. I mean, I should have gotten out more as a candidate, but when you're running on a shoestring budget and you have no money, you can't visit every county.
I'm not surprised you didn't hear about it. It's a population of 0.
Well, that's why I didn't hear about it.
But there actually is a population out there. It's a very much one of the last Wild West areas of Oregon. There is no law enforcement will not go out there.
Well, that is just asinine.
And there's good, and I hate to say it, there's very good reason for it.
There's never a good reason for why law enforcement won't do their job.
Well, the reasoning behind it is it is over an hour and a half from town. From where their county, because it would be Klamath County Sheriff's Department would be the one who would respond out there. It is over an hour and a half from town. It is an area where it is I was even told, because I had to call 911 when I was out there doing this security with a friend, because I was like, let's try to get this person prosecuted for what he just did. Didn't end up happening. They called me back an hour and a half after I called 911. The sheriff's officer called me back an hour and a half after I called 911 from this guy threatening to kill me as soon as I stepped off of the property. Called me back and said, "So what happened today?" I told him what happened. And he's like, "Call me once he shoots at you."
No, wow.
Or points the gun at you. Want to know what my response to him was?
That you would take care of him for him.
I told him, "You'll come out to a dead body." I said, "I don't want to kill anybody, but it'll be too late."
Right, and it's just kind of law enforcement responsibility where they cherry pick where they go and don't go.
Right. And
No,
the problem is there's I don't know if this is a rumor, but I've heard it from people who are in that area. A law enforcement officer went out there to respond to something a while back. And his body was burned, his car was buried, and no one ever knows what happened to him. He completely disappeared.
But just because the area is a dangerous place to police doesn't mean you don't police. I mean, look at downtown Portland.
Right. Right. And it's, the problem with it being so far from backup and people up there literally, the big thing up there, a lot of the people up there just want to mind their own business. They don't, it's one of those places when you go somewhere, without laws, you would think it would be completely chaos, but with how small it is up there and the people up there, they go up there to get away from things. They
still need to have law enforcement though. I don't care how secluded an area is.
You would think law enforcement would respond up there, and I beats me why they wouldn't. But people out there in areas like that really do need things that people in Eugene, Frank, don't need as bad, I guess, to put it for lack of a better word. Because they have to wait an hour and a half for law enforcement,
which is just
come out there for a shooting. They need a 30-round bag compared to someone in Eugene who you could debate whether they need it. We'll put it that way. But
I mean, if law enforcement refuses to do their job, I might make exceptions in those situations.
I think we need to look at when we are also if you are to make gun control regulations, which, let me be clear, I'm against almost all gun regulation, almost just about any gun regulation that's going to be thrown out there.
You say you are, but then when we actually talk
I think we could come up with some
more and more compromises.
Right, there's some compromise.
NRA as you.
There's stuff we could make it to where it's not as restrictive. Although I would still be against it, it would be something that I'd be a little more like.
I would say you'd be against it. You can live with them.
I could sort of live with it, I guess. But the 30, I mean, we need to look at it via a county by county basis or an area by area basis even. Because Klamath Falls and Portland, two completely different towns, need two completely different things and you get what I mean?
Oh yes, absolutely. This whole thing, one size fits all. No. Right.
Okay, well, we probably should end this now.
Are you sure?
Well, it's already 9 o'clock.
Are you sure you don't want to call a friend?
I don't think I got any friends.
Okay, well, I mean, I could remove 2 of the answers so you have a 50-50 chance. I couldn't resist. Well, Zach, it was a pleasure. I'll email you some more stuff. Don't be a stranger, and I don't work too hard now observing, because I know sometimes watching all night long can really put you to sleep.
Right.
All that watching and no combustion.
Hey, it's Saturday. Fridays and Saturdays typically are the crazy nights. So.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, I mean,
I'm tonight get some craziness.
I'm gonna be up most of the night, so if you want to shoot me a message, I'll go ahead and email you my a phone number. That's on my campaign phone number, and I'll be emailing it to you from a Yahoo address. So I keep my campaign and my personal life separate. So
awesome.
If you see something from Yahoo, don't think it's somebody trying to spam you with straight porn. I'll only send you gay porn.
Okay, well, yeah. So yeah, let's get another Zoom meeting at some point.
Oh, definitely. And you know what they say? Parting is such sweet sorrow, but the show must go on.
Right.
All righty, Zach. But thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.